Yep, they're one more win away from making it to round 4 and facing the winner of either Ducky Getters versus, I believe it's Ducky Getters versus the Flamingos, where I believe Ducky Getters, as it currently shows on the Battle 5 page, are up 1-0. So that series may come sooner than expected if the teams that won the first game are able to close out the series right here, Koryak. But Lotus now going to be on the blue side. So Syndicate, the losing team, obviously having side selection, opting to go for the red team, Koryak. We're going to have to see what kind of, aces they have up their sleeve for those 3rd and 5th picks.
Lucian still on the table, hasn't been picked yet, but has been banned previously. And keep in mind for everybody watching, this, of course, obviously is Fearless, which you can see the previous picks right below my dumb hat for each side. And this is full Fearless, so everyone who is picked can't be played by either side. But I think the bans will mostly stay the same. I don't see any reason for Syndicate, for example, to ever not ban or pick Lucian, especially with how much trouble they had to do. But they might orient their bans a little more top heavy now this time. There's the Lucian ban immediately followed into Aurora.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see something a little bit more different stylistically from the top side of Syndicate, as I think that is where they struggled the most. Obviously, Chrome and Clarice were the big breadwinners of the bot lane, and they definitely dominated the matchup, but it really kind of felt like Porsche was a ticking time bomb that Syndicate had no way of stopping. They tried to freeze him, they tried to throw anything they had at him, but he just kept on snipping, and he kept on slicing. So if they have something up their sleeve that is capable of taking down and knocking down those scaling top laners, or knocking down Porsche in particular a little bit more here in game number 2, I absolutely think that they should take it and use those counter picks that red side provides.
Absolutely, and I think that's the best strategy to go for here. And I kind of see a lot of parallels. I keep going back to chess between chess and League of Legends. I think League of Legends is a more complicated chess. And red side very much. That's
a big compliment for us.
I think it is. But red side very much is black, right? And if you're familiar with chess, right, that means you sort of give the tempo, but
it's a good way of looking at it.
It also means that you have those counters, right? Just like you were talking about and how important they're going to be. And they're going to be, if they didn't know before, they definitely know now. They cannot leave Porsche alone. So it's going to be so critical to watch out for that or to counter pick that. So I wouldn't be surprised when they go throughout their picks if they wait for Lotus to pick their top lane first in order to get that appropriate top pick. But I thought Jax was supposed to do pretty well early game into Gwen, and they really struggled, Gwen getting that early kill, setting the tempo for the rest of the match. Right, it's okay.
Going to be Robbie Bob locking in the Rise for himself, another very prominent practitioner of the Rod of Ages. I feel like that has kind of always been the theme for Robbie Bob. He's really good at those champions that have that scaling item, who are able to, sink into the late game. I think that he has been one of the best mid laners when it comes to using those champions that can utilize that item. As Syndicate on the other side going to respond with a Hwei, so maybe trying to take advantage of the Rise's lack of range here in the early game, bully him out, and possibly give some prio, and maybe this means that we'll get a more aggressive jungler similar to what we saw from Syndicate in game number 1.
Well, and of course, Jarvan is still on the table. It has not been picked or banned, so that could be something that both BB and looking for. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna get Poppy. That a bit of a counter pick that's not set up for a counter yet, because it's not like Rise has a dash.
I think they're maybe trying to constrict what Chrome is capable of playing here. As we know, Chrome loves things with a little bit more mobility under its belt, obviously minus the Jhin, which is fearless away. So, things like the Corki could suffer when they go up against Poppy. Things like the Zeri could suffer when they go up against Poppy. Callista as well. So there are a decent amount of AD carries that I think get pinched and possibly locked away because this Poppy is gotten the gauntlet thrown down on it. But that doesn't necessarily translate to all the other lanes that Lotus have yet to pick up. In fact, they are just going to go straight for an aggressive support, followed by that Jarvan that you foretold, Koryak. So already really just not minding the fact that the Poppy can use that steadfast presence on the flag and drag, saying we are going to go for an ult combo. We are going to use those level 6s to our advantage, and we are going to team fight them to death.
Well, and that's a very scary amount of area denial just from Nico and Jarvan alone, right? You've got Cataclysm, then of course you've got Nico's ult immediately to follow it up, or Nico's ult to start it, and then Jarvan to follow it up. I'm pretty sure that they're going to play into it. I'm hoping, because one of my favorite combos is the hot pot. I'm hoping we get a Rumble tagged in here with this too, especially if they're going for area denial. I think that I agree.
Corki is like a mini hot pot with his Valkyrie, so maybe that's an angle that they could look for. But again, you got to worry about that Poppy. Is now Syndicate. The question remains on who they're going to pick for their third one, and it is going to be the Sage Wabe Classic Koryak, the Ezreal locked in here on 3. So setting themselves up for a, I would say, really prominent range poke-esque comp here in game number 2. You've got a lot of range like we talked about with the Hwei. A lot of that follows up with the Ezreal. So if you can keep your distance, if you can position correctly, along with the peel that Poppy kind of gives you a little bit of grace for you to mess up from time to time by having that steadfast presence cover for you. This should be a game where Syndicate, if they can play into it and sort of avoid a lot of those just straight 5v5s, they are looking at being possibly a very scary comp, at least in the siege. So already I think that those grubs rise in priority when you see a lot of these long range champions like the Ezreal and Hwei.
For sure, I definitely agree with that. So that's going to be one objective and one goal that Syndicate might be shooting for on their end. And I'm also excited to see, I want to see both the Nico and the Ezreal on opposite sides do well. I'm not a big fan of Nico bottom. I don't like her. I feel like there's better options. I feel like she's good in the same way that you have like Kha'Zix is good in solo play, right? They're great at capitalizing on the mistakes, but like for the most part, if you can count, you're fine, right? And I can't really say anything because on Spectator, I've missed Nico too. So, you know, it might get me too, but I'm also not a T2 player. And I have seen Nico show up, I think literally yesterday, and I just wasn't really impressed with the performance. So maybe, you know, Calamity's going to change my mind here on Nico. Last couple of bans are out. So above me, it looks like we got Rakan, so we're worried about that. I agree with that. I could see how Rakan could be disruptive. Camila, and of course, Sivir, the hyper carry. I think that's a very, very good ban. We haven't talked about her, I think, too much, but you know, Chrome getting their hands on Sivir and getting any sort of lead is very, very scary. So I really like that ban. And then, of course, the Kai'Sa ban right now.
We're probably going to be seeing a top laner, or probably a support here on for Syndicate, something that can either immediately kite the Nico off or possibly match its engage, and they're going to be going for a bit of both, but not necessarily indexing into one or the other. It's going to be the Thresh locked in. So this is kind of going back to what we saw from Syndicate in game number 1, Koryak. It's all about those picks, making those plays possible through just finding people isolated and out of position. I think that the death sentence is a really good tool for that. But if I'm being honest with you, I feel like the Syndicate damage profile at the current moment doesn't really adhere to a comp like that. Obviously, Thresh does have the range with the death sentence and has the ability to, you know, get some of those threats out of danger. But I am not sure that the Syndicate comp, which is very lacking in CC minus the Poppy wall shove, which is conditional on where they are on the map, is really the best combo for them so far. As it looks like Lotus going to lock in that Corki that we predicted Koryak, and then the Scion to follow. So a lot of cross-map play very possible for them. You've got the Realm Warp, you've got the Unstoppable Onslaught. These are tools that you can use to easily maneuver around the map and stretch Syndicate extremely thin if they aren't careful.
And, you know, something I do want to note too, and sort of double back on and double down on is, you know, once again, more and more area denial, right? We talked about Nico, we talked about Jarvan, but then we've got Scion, right? Scion sitting in a bush, charging up his ability, even if you don't see it, or even if you do see it, that's a great tool to play. And then even when you get in there and you go in on Corki, Corki's just going to shred you, right? I don't care if you're Poppy, I don't care if you're Mbessa, which are people who want to be on top of them. Corki is going to shred you. I think the keys is going to be here is if Calamity is able to get their hands on the Corki, able to get that death sentence, like you were talking about, that range, and then maybe followed up with Hwei, and then maybe an Mbessa. If they can lock them down before Corki's able to do anything, they can deny that shred. But I think that's going to be a bit of a tall order for them to ask, especially with seeing some of the plays here for Chrome.
I certainly agree. But looking on the other end for Syndicate, the team that wasn't able to pull through in game number 1, it felt like a lot of that reasoning came from them not being able to transition BB's early game pressure into those late game threats. So going into game number 2, I really want to see BB on the Poppy, who, you know, blipped out of existence just there. You know, use that pressure on the map as it's actually, it's Vi.
Is
Not
it
Poppy.
Vi?
It's Vi,
Okay.
not Poppy. Okay.
I actually like Vi a lot better.
I like Vi a lot better. Okay, so BB is going for the Vi. I think this point still stands. We want to see BB have pressure in the early game, really make use of that level 6 timer, and then make sure that Foles, Sagewabe, and Karsiak on the Ambessa are able to take the reins and sort of ride this into a game 2 victory once the late game comes around. And also, I think the same extends to All Calamity. We need to see those hooks hitting. That is the big thing for this champion. It's a really big litmus test for this player in particular, who is very new to the competitive scene. It'll be really cool to see him pop off against these more experienced and very veteran-esque players on Lotus if he can succeed.
Well, and I think too, looking at the top lane, I'm hoping Karsiak is able to leverage the Ambessa into the Scion. But the thing though too is with Scion is even if you beat him literally to death, he's still going to continue that macro and he's still going to continue that pushing. I think he's less scary than Gwyn is in the mid lane, which is more what I expected for, but maybe they're going for more of a pressure macro oriented build. Because something I do want to discuss and hear your opinion on here in a second is what are the early game objectives for each of these teams? What do they want to do and how do they want to do it, Quacks?
I feel like Lotus just need to be using their cross-map ultimates, such as the Realm Warp, such as the Unstoppable Onslaught, in order to get these flank angles. I think that one thing they really don't need to do, whereas a lot of other comps are required to do that in order to take objectives, is actually set up around them, right? I mean, Lotus have the ability to, I think, snap engage on a lot of these fights, and so for that reason I think that Dragons should be a main contender, but Grubs also I don't think have aren't necessarily diminished in value, especially when you have a Scion. This is a champion that needs to split push, as well as the Rise and the Corki, who are decent tower takers in their own right, but mostly want those Grubs in order to take plates for their high economy and getting to that late game sooner. Syndicate though, I think that Dragons really are going to be the name of the game. I was saying Grubs earlier because of how much range they have, but they sort of pivoted and went for a more mixed comp here, because now you have Vi, you have Ambessa. These are two very short-ranged champions who want to be up in your face and fight you. And so I do think Drake, along with the scaling that Foles and Sagewabe should have on their champions, those are the big objectives. So maybe a little bit more one-dimensional, a little bit more of a linear game plan for Syndicate here in game number 2, but honestly that just means less steps in order to accomplishing it. And at this point, when your back is against the wall, you want the simple things in life, and Syndicates certainly have a simple comp here. Let's see if they can execute it as we are onto the Rift in game number 2.
Well, and you were talking about it before, talking about simple being, an advantage you can leverage. But I think something that's also really great for them to leverage, especially if they are behind, is these comfort picks. And, Sagewabe going with the Ezreal, like you said, you called it out before. They're a very, very solid Ezreal player, which I think is a pretty big compliment, especially if you're talking about in the forms of like T2. So hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more performance out there. And they had some really good moments into Chrome in the previous game, but they just weren't able to capitalize on it. Once Clarice came online and the Leona started going in, it really started to change. And I'm worried about Clarice on Nico, just because I'm worried about Nico in general, but they proved me wrong very quickly on Leona and really impressed me. I also really like their roaming there on their side. I think Karma's roaming was a little bit better, but nothing really came too much from the support roaming, which is a little sad for me to see, because I think that's a pretty important talent for supports to do, is know when to roam and how to roam, because that roam is so powerful, especially at the Grubs.
Look at the blue side. Chad is actually split mapping here. Starts the blue buff of BB. This means that Sage and All Calamity are going to have to be really careful about pushing up these first couple of waves, because the Jarvan could just roam on down with a flag and dragon. Maybe not look for a kill, but burning those flashes, particularly burning the flash of Sagewabe, just removes another net of stability that he could have in this laning phase, and that's exactly what he wants. He wants this lane to be as zen and undisruptive as possible. If we have a Jarvan constantly visiting, that throws a wrench in that plan. So it looks like BB isn't going to be there to help for a long time, as he's actually going to adhere to the split map and go to that top side.
Well, and looking at the trades, not only between Robbie Bobby and his lane opponents, which are so far pretty even. I think they're both down on a pot on that side. Something I wanted to note is, so Ambessa, right, she's a top laner that wants to do a lot of this skirmishing back and forward. And Sion kind of just wants to farm. And I think the positioning so far of his abilities and the poking he's gotten back and forward have been a bit more impressive than I expected. You know, granted, I am expecting a lot here from Porsche, especially from the previous gameplay.
Look at the wolves. Yeah,
BB looking for an angle over here on Chad. Chad trying to find some sort of information there on Vi. Finally going in on Vi. Vi going over the wall. Unfortunately, turns into a bit of nothing burger, and I'm not sure he was able to grab that. I think Vi was able to get the
yeah, he was. He has 16. He has 16 CS, which means he got the entire encampment of wolves and wasted a good amount of time on Chad's side. Chad actually went from the blue side across the entire map to try and deny, or rather secure those camps, deny them from BB, and was unsuccessful. So a bit of a tempo lead being gained here by BB, as well as a gold lead, as he's found himself to be a camp up at this point. Maybe even two, as Chad is on the top side. Herald, the junglers should meet around there.
Thresh, unfortunately, blowing his Q, blowing his hook, not really able to get too much. And something I think that's really important on all the hook champs is
look at mid,
but positioning forward. Ooh, pretty good fear there.
Wow,
from the mid laner, saving them absolutely. Chad dropping an emo, a little frustrated. We definitely wanted to get that kill there on that side. And speaking of kill, Porsche getting dove under tower, but handling it cool and calm under pressure, blowing a flash, but most importantly,
they got the real one.
The real Nico got grabbed actually from that. The timing was just a little off there for Clarice. Either way, the trading going back and forward. Sage Wabi taking more damage than I expected him to here in bot lane.
They're going to be able to shove this wave in now, but because Clarice has flash burn, they're just going to immediately reset. Syndicate winning out on the map state so far, burning 2 flashes. Meanwhile, Chad, who I think really smartly snuck into that mid lane to make that gank happen, not able to get the flash out of fulls, so he won't hold on to that summoner spell for now. Just the micro things going Syndicate's way, but as we saw from game number 1, those micro things can go their way. It's about the team fighting, it's about the macro, and Lotus are an expert on those things with how much pedigree this top side has.
Well, and I think this experience too for Lotus' side leads to, I think, what's really important when you have these best of basically not one series, which is consistency, right? You know, like, so you can get a good win or you can get a bad loss, but like I think your averages, you know, help you out definitely a lot more. And Lotus seems to be very solid on those averages. They seem to be very confident. If they have to play behind, they seem like they already have a plan. And even though they take little micro losses here and there, they try very hard not to let it get to them, not to let it get to their play and their mental and everything like that, and trying to capitalize on that. You know, like Chad getting sort of like, I don't want to say outplayed, but outmaneuvered there by
oh no, it was outplayed.
Is frustrating. Okay, well, you know, we go with outplayed then. But that's definitely gonna be frustrating on Chad's side. Speaking of Chad, we've got fake Chad over there, as it looks like Ambessa scouts out the real Chad on the other
and here
side.
comes Robbie.
Still up. Here we go. Bobby Robbie did rotate, blowing a little bit. I think that was his ult. Yeah, blowing his ult or a TP there on that side, but unfortunately, they just weren't able to get Karsiak. Karsiak feeling a disturbance in the force, able to get out, sort of scouting out Chad over here. And now we're actually getting a pretty decent rotation here from
Chad is low.
Ooh, this is actually a pretty dangerous position, but Chad actually doesn't get grabbed. Unfortunately, Thresh didn't capitalize on that. I think that might have been a good time, but maybe they're worried about Nico or Quirky coming over the wall.
Or it could have been off cooldown. I think that death sentence probably would have been at least flung out if he had it, but still, nobody dying on the top side. It's a really good amount of recognition as All Calamity is shopping.
Grabbed and what is he doing? First blood going to Syndicate, but still, there's a whole bunch of damage here on Chrome's side. Chrome absolutely shredding the Thresh going down. Chrome going over the flash, over the wall. Clarice might just barely make it out of here. Ambessa, there's the heal, but that's more cooldowns there on their side below. But importantly, a great play there from Chrome. Really positioned, really well timed. and able to turn that around. That could have been so scary. Unfortunate for Chad, he seems to be, at least in this early game, a little bit of weaker link, or at least struggling, both with the jungler and then mid, and then of course in top lane. So hopefully he's able to recover. Only a little bit down on CS, but being in that gray screen for that early on can cost him.
I mean, it's a very unnecessary 1-for-1 on the side of Lotus, but a 1-for-1 nonetheless. A kill goes on to Chrome, so the Corki is on the board. At the end of the day, I think that's more worth it for Lotus, but still Chad just recalling, not respecting Syndicate at all. So he goes down. It's a kill onto Karsiak. We'll have to see what he can do with that, as now he has found himself in a 1v1 with Porsche. Flashes to cancel the ult, and this Sion is a dead man.
Sion ready to come back from the grave like it's Easter Sunday here in a moment. Look at him. He's still doing a good chunk of damage to Ambessa, continuing to proxy the wave, building up more and more macro. Maybe not caring too much about the death, just happy to disrupt the Ambessa, because I think at this point, we're really going to watch out for Ambessa. Ambessa had a kill before that. Now they have a second one, and I think Ambessa is going to be a slowly rising star, and I'm excited to see it here from Karsiak. I want to see them play a little bit better. I feel like they really struggled on Jax, unfortunately, for their side, so maybe this is going to be their redemption arc.
Certainly feels like it is turning out to be that way, Koryak. But Lotus, because of the swap, because Chrome has that phage, that item advantage, or not necessarily item advantage, as both AD carries actually have phage, but has that tempo advantage, will be able to shove in the wave, get priority for Chad, and those grubs will go over to them. Now Clarit's maybe looking for some form of engage with BB.
Ooh, Clarit's a little bit out of position, getting assault and battery there by BB. BB flashing out, followed into a cataclysm, trying to lock them down. Jarvan going down to about half HP, but Vi going down right before that. Chrome here to try to mop things up. Look at, he's got an opportunity. He's got a double kill. Can he get a quadra this early in this game? Thresh just barely able to get out of there with a flash, but still, that's another kill on the Corki on Chrome.
I mean, Chrome is the last one standing, but he is standing tall and proud. This Corki untouched in the exchange, but still it's 2 kills going over to Syndicate. They're the team that completed the feat of warfare, so they will have that for them. If they can just get 2 more objectives or a tower, they should be able to complete that. But this looming threat of the Lotus AD carry, you can't ignore it as Syndicate. You have to find a way to set him behind, but it looks really difficult for the side of Syndicate. I mean, look at how many flashes they burned in that top side fight. Sake Wabe doesn't have one. Calamity doesn't have one. BB doesn't have one. So a lot of the ability to actually catch out Chrome on this Corki is nullified because of that. And they're going to have to really wait for that opportunity, but they're going to have to try and find it sooner rather than later, because eventually once Chrome gets, you know, like 2 to 3 items, could be a doomsday clock that strikes 12.
Well, and I think something important to notice too that's been kind of passively happening in the background is Corki's been able to get a decent amount of plates, and I think that's the idea for the rotation, right? Tops down to 2 plates and bots down to 3 plates, so that's more potential gold for Corki to continue to push and to grab into that. And I think he's going to have a good opportunity because we're getting a back here for Thresh, which means Corki's going to have sort of free range. And take a look at the gold difference; it's about a K difference there on that side, and Chrome's very.
A lot of that goes over to Chrome. Yeah, a lot of that is from Chrome, who's almost 1,000 gold up on his counterpart, 10.5 minutes in. Syndicate just going to give up this dragon. They realize they don't really have room to fight this. They don't have a lot of flashes. They don't have a lot of ults. So they are just going to let that one go. Clarit's especially dinging level 6 while Calamity is level 5. It's just not worth trying to engage onto a Nico who has ultimate available.
Nico getting a decent stun, followed into a death sentence. Ezreal popping his ult, but unfortunately not doing a whole bunch of damage there to Corki. Just probably a little bit of love tap on their side as the CSing continues there in bottom. Speaking of CS, it's 106 now to 82 even at this state in the game. Once again, Nico getting grabbed there by the Thresh. Calamity forcing the ult there for Nico. Nico getting taken down by BB. BB rotating and unfortunately making the gingerbread man sad in bot lane. A little bit of emote there from Corky, but it's not over just quite yet because it looks like Jarvan's positioning, and so is BB. So maybe we're going to get more action here there for it. Vi does finally bounce away, maybe looking for an angle here on the Rise, who actually, how is mid going? 119 to 116, so sort of like a neutral name. There it is. Jarvan going in, forcing the ult there by Thresh. Thresh going into the bush, trying to save himself, but he's going to do the ult on top of Sage Wabi. Sage Wabi does able to get out because once again, Ezreal's one of those ones really hard to knock down. Vi going for the Corky. Corky trying to shred and indeed trying to get a little bit of kills here and there, but the jungler goes down. Jarvan really struggling. Sion just barely missing the way, flashing forward, giving Robbie Bobby a kill, and that's going to be a trade inadvertently from mid to bot, but now Chrome can go for more and more plates. They've got to watch out for Vi, but I think the ult is down on Vi. Yes, Assault and Battery is down.
Yeah, BB is going to look for a flank angle, as is Karstiak. Chrome doesn't have flash, doesn't have barrier, is going to try and run to the river, but the question is, can he make the distance? Is he Hercules?
No, he is not, because knocking down Hercules is going to be this Ambessa, who is now 4-0 and shaping up to be the MVP of this game, I think.
Certainly is now a teleport coming in from Fulls, but does he know that he is teleporting into his own death? Porsche does not care about the damage. The turret is gone, and the flashless Hwei is nowhere to be found as he goes down yet again.
Hwei delivering himself style, but it looks like Chad tried to give it to Sion, and Hwei is just able to kind of slowly walk away unscathed for the most part.
Yeah, somehow Mr. Hwei gets out of there. Fulls gets out with just a sliver of HP as BB Swag almost gets a kill onto Chad. Is actually going to keep looking for it with the ult in tow.
Battery there on Chad. Chad really can't catch a break. Porsche trying to keep them alive, but Vi trying to punch through everything. It does buy Chad just enough time. Porsche really helping out there, but taking a little bit of damage there for Hwei. At the very least, he was able to get Chad out. That's going to be great for his mental and his tempo because he's 0-3 and really struggling. He's up on CS 75 to 69, but he's really struggling. Vi seems to be everywhere he is.
Yeah, Chad just really trying to look for these early game proactive plays right from the get-go, right? He cheesed onto BB and looked for a way to split the map, but hasn't really been able to capitalize on it so far, as it feels like BB has really gotten the better of him in most of these early games. Game number one, I think that Xin Zhao was the MVP for Syndicate, as most people who watch would probably agree with me. And then this game, BB has been really proactive, not just at, making plays happen, but defending a lot of his carry champions. I think a large reason why Sage Wabe has yet to die is because those assault and batteries, right, those cease and desists, find their marks and prevent a lot of action from going Lotus' direction.
Chad going in, trying to go to the shutdown there on the MVP. Can Karstiak turn it around? They do have the damage, but it looks like they don't have the HP bar as Chad goes for the secure kill and indeed gets it. Finally, Chad's got some gold, got some money in his pocket. How he uses it is going to be really important, and something I did want to note is that this Corky Chrome has been very good with his pushes and continuing to take down tower after tower, and we've seen it there so far as the top tower has gone down, bot tower has gone down, definitely with some help from Sion, and the tower in mid is getting really close to going down. There's a minute left on the clock for for Dragon, so that's going to be important there, that pressure being on the side of Lotus.
Lotus split the map for the top side. They will have control over the Herald Pit, which means that they should be able to secure it. Syndicate, though, definitely have control of the bot side. You can see that Fulls using, I'm not even going to try and name the spells that this champion uses, but using that one AoE spell that's red, manages to basically gate Porsche, and now Porsche is going to get a little bit frustrated, say, Porsche don't let me down.
Ulting him, doing a good chunk of damage. He's one shot away, and once again, someone walks away from Sion with like 10 HP. That's got to be frustrating, but maybe Sion's just happy to get some more free farm. Who knows?
Chad is
going in, looking for an angle, cutting out off Calamity. It looks like Thresh might die for the sins of Hwei, but no, just barely going over the wall. BB rotating once again. It looks like Clarice running into Sage Wabi.
Well, they got Clarice
for Predator play. Assault and battery on top of the Nico. Nico going down. This is what I was talking about. Nico struggling. I'm not a fan of her, and this is exactly why. It's not just positioning. We are getting a Jarvan going in. Cataclysm there on the back line. Tiny hot going up. Here we go. Chrome going for the triple triple kill. Can he get it? Rise taking at least one of the kills. Bobby showing that he is a force to be reckoned with as well, as Chrome tries to get an angle here on Ambessa. Ambessa finally going down, getting their second deaths. Unfortunately, not getting the ever so slippery Ezreal, but still, that is 3, I think, for 1. Yeah, Nico went down, and the entire, like almost the entire team for Sin went down. Syndicate.
Really good turn there from Lotus, and a lot of credit over to Chad. He set up that Cataclysm beautifully. He found 3. The hot pot combo that we talked about in the draft, Koryak, came to fruition, and now Lotus should be able to claim the dragon. They knocked down that mid lane turret, and they are looking to turn this game around. 17.5 minutes in, it was anyone's game. Sin were biting back a lot, but it feels like this might just be the turn that they need. Karsiak, now 4-2, has been on the receiving end of a lot of pressure in these past 5 to 7 minutes. We're gonna have to see if Lotus can dole out some of that and more now that they have second dragon and control of that count.
The kills are tied up, but the gold and the objectives definitely are not. It's 33k to 29k at 17 minutes on the clock. Lotus has done a very good job grabbing both Drakes, grabbing, I believe they grabbed Shelly, and definitely grabbing the Void Grubs, which Corki and Sion have been using to great effect for sure.
Yeah, and Chrome is 6-1 at this point, and Sage, we're looking at this Ezreal to be the big carry, as he has yet to die in this match. He's 4-0, but hasn't even gotten his second item yet, so he's still really behind in gold when compared to Lotus's ADC. Porsche forced to flash there to get away from the punish, but does clear the wave in time, so really no aggressive plays possible for Syndicate at this point. They're forced to react. The Herald is dropped, and they overcommit on the bot side, Koryak.
Blowing a couple of resources is going to cost them a T2. Look at Corki destroy that. Corki going over the wall. Nico trying to find an angle, but unfortunately BB is not going to allow it, and Bessa is not going to allow it. They are going to try to start a fight over here underneath it, but they do not have the numbers advantage. There's going to be a decent knock up the armor shred, followed by an Ezreal, but it's not going to be enough, as Sage Wabi is just having a hard time rotating, having a hard time dealing this. There's Sion there in the mid lane, soaking up a whole bunch of damage. Might get taken out, but he doesn't care. He's going to get a kill, and now his dead body is going to continue beating the crap out of the other side, out of the other team, going for the Thresh. Thresh just barely getting away, but that T2 is definitely not going away. It's going to get taken down there by Lotus. Lotus doing so much work here, only taking 1 death here and there and turning it into 3 kills over and over.
And still, you know, for the namesake of Sion, I would say that's a good death. Bouts would be proud. That was a beautiful tower dive from Lotus. The aggro juggled by the Sion. He goes down, but they find 3 in return. Results is going to be an extra kill onto Chrome, as well as an extra kill onto Robbie Bob. So this mid and ADC carry on Lotus, this rising Corki, at this point are starting to turn onto their third item. This is really when that doomsday clock starts to hit 12. Sin, if they want a chance to get back into this game, they've got to act quickly. They have to go for this Otacon. This is a desperation play, but they're 3 members and they don't have their Hwei. Their Hwei doesn't have TP. They would be 4v5 at best.
Fortunately, Lantern is able to save Ambessa there. Positioning pretty good. The angle is great here for them to grab Otacon, but Otacon is always something you need to watch out for. It's notorious for turning games around, of getting thrown there, but it looks like Syndicate's not going to take that advantage, not going to go for it. Worried about the gold, worried about the Corki, and I don't really blame them, because Lotus has their own armor shred there on their side in the forms of Jarvan.
It is going to be the Otacon claimed for Lotus. Syndicate, they will get the objective bounties on not 1, but 2 towers. So, you know, like a consolation prize here and there. But still, despite that, it is still like 5,000 in favor of Lotus. So they have a lot of groundwork to cover if they want to come back into this game. Dragon up in a little less than 90 seconds, and you can already see that Lotus using these Hex Gates aggressively. They are unafraid to be up in Syndicate's face.
Clarice going for the Hwei, getting the knock up there on the way, but unfortunately there's not a lot of follow-up here. Chad is here, but it's kind of turning into a little bit of a scuffed battle, and this might actually go for Chad as the Jarvan goes down, unfortunately, there on his side. Chad really struggling. BB everywhere Chad is. Clarice trying to turn things around. That was a good Hex Gate, but it was a bad follow-up there, unfortunately, for Chad.
And not only that, but he didn't land the flag and drag. The flag did not connect with the queue, and so he wasn't able to close the gap. As now Syndicate, can they get Chrome?
On Chrome actually turning around rather quickly, having to go over the wall, trying to get saved by Bobby, but unfortunately not able to save them in time. However, they're able to pick up a kill. That's 2 for 2. TP coming in, trying to go for Clarice. Clarice just barely getting out. Here comes Mbessa. If anyone can kill Bobby, it's going to be Mbessa. Mbessa's so scary at this point. She has 4 kills, a lot of gold there, but it looks like Rise is really trying to turn around. Sion coming in from downtown, knocking him out, destroying the Mbessa, showing I can play too. And now the Drake is freed up for Lotus.
And it is going to be Karshiak that gets a train run over him in game. Of course, Syndicate though are waning. They are withering. Lotus are blooming as they get their 3rd Drake of the game. 22.5 minutes. This squad is looking to 2-0 their opposition.
Definitely looking to be the case. So, and they've had anywhere from about a 5K to a 7K lead for a very solid moment. That's going to be 3rd Drake going down as another T2 gets taken down. All the T2s are up for Lotus, but that's not the same for Syndicate. Syndicate has lost a lot of objectives. They've lost a lot of towers. They were able to get 1 Drake, but that's really about it. And they were able to shut down Chad in a lot of places. But Sion, in a lot of ways, has really been turning that around. I haven't really liked the positioning a crazy amount here for Clarice, but I don't think the last one was his fault. Portia directly feeling something going on, maybe thinking that BB's around, is going to do a little bit of backing retreat, even though he's not that afraid of Mbessa. He's definitely afraid of BB, and I understand why. I think BB's had a very solid performance, and it's just been really great at just doing everything they need to for their job.
At BB, I feel scoreline a little bit deceptive. 2-5 doesn't tell the whole story. He was very proactive in the early game, but similar to that first match, it just kind of had a limit timing wise, as now Lotus have outscaled, and Chad has gone
going in on Hwei, getting a decent knockup, followed into an Ezreal. There's the exhaust there in the background. Corki was able to mop up a kill as well. That's 2 dead for Sight. No, actually, Thresh barely able to guide away. That's a double kill on Rise. Thresh not in position, getting caught there by both the Nico and Chrome, allowing Chrome to rotate there to the main event, which was that fight, and now they're going to turn that into a couple of T3s and maybe some inhibs.
Porsche, he doesn't even have to really duel Karshiak at this point. He just needs to stop the Mbessa from backing, stop Syndicate from getting more numbers on this top side, as they will take down the inhibitor. They're having a little bit of trouble with the Hex Gates, but they'll figure it out eventually, as now it looks like 2 of them just say screw it. We are coasting around that 25-minute mark. Baron will be up soon. Lotus should be looking to rip that objective on spawn at this point, force Syndicate to fight them on their own terms. And unless that fight goes the way of Syndicate, it feels like that might just be the bell for the game.
Nico scouting out with her clones over and over, trying to get some wards here before the objective, blowing the plant so the enemy cannot use it. That's exactly what you want to see. But a counter to that is Thresh going in, clearing out the wards, and getting Vision there for their side. Vision's been so important throughout this game. Both supports know it, and I think they both come more online when it at least comes to the Vision and trying to prepare for it. Using sweepers exactly when and where they need to, and placing wards when and where they need to. Baron is up. Chad's looking for an angle, and speaking of sweepers, using sweeper to clear it out, try to get more wards in there. And now Chad's really got to watch out for it. He doesn't have a lot of support there on that.
Oh, they're on the wrong side of the map.
Robbie going in on the other side, and Mbessa going in on Chad, but now gone for Predator Prey. And look at him, absolutely melted. There's the Cataclysm onto the Vi. BB Chad getting some much needed revenge there on his opponent, but ignoring it. Now going for the going for the Hwei. Hwei getting taken down, and that's another 2 kills for Lotus, and they could turn that into either more inhibs or Baron.
Or they could just turn it into the game. They're 5 members strong. It's a 5v3. There's a wave pushing in top. The supers are flooding in. Lotus are blooming here in summer. And the Syndicate falls and collapses. They will move on to the next phase between either the series against Ducky Getters or the Flamingos. This team, they remain undefeated though, Koryak.
The Nexus going down, and Lotus quickly moving their way into MVP of my heart. Fantastic plays from everybody on both sides, but I also don't want to discourage the other team. Syndicate played very, very well, but unfortunately, Lotus was just a little bit better. They were a little bit more locked in, and I think that experience, like we were talking about, showed through time and time again, especially on the Scion. I don't want to miss out on the Scion there. Porsche maybe not having as much of an impact where it comes to damage and where it comes to maybe the kills, but Scion playing sort of textbook Scion of fantastic ults, fantastic macro, and just great plays overall by Porsche.
Porsche understanding the assignment. He wasn't the carry this game. He was the facilitator. He was the side laner. He was the pressure soaker. He did all of those things, got an A+, aced the test, and now Lotus, full marks going in to their next series. I don't believe it's been determined who that will be yet, but like we said, before this game happened, Ducky Getters are 1 up over Flamingos. This is just a game. This is just rather a series where I think the ceiling needs to be raised for this top side. A lot of people have their own preconceptions on where they would rank Porsche, where they would rank Chad, where they would rank Robbie Bob. And I think the idea is that they want to raise that. They want to take that and show everyone that they still have what it takes to get into tier 2 after so long, after so many disappointments over the last year plus. And I mean, performances like this are exciting.
I think they're definitely proving that so far, right? Because as my intro said beforehand, you know, whoever goes forward onto this will be continued to be unstoppable. That's 3 2-0 wipes in a row here for Lotus, and it was almost the same thing for Syndicate. Syndicate now getting knocked down in the lower bracket, so there's a non-zero chance that they're coming back, and they will come back, maybe, hopefully, to fight Lotus again, and maybe try to get a redemption arc on there. I'm always a fan to see that underdog story. Either way, at least for the current moments, this is all we have for you. We've got more on the way, but we got to wait for those games. We got to wait for Ducky Getters to finish their game and move on, but we will be covering the next upcoming game. We just don't know exactly when just quite yet. I think the deal said about 1600 PST, if I remember correctly on the deal, so I'd assume somewhere around there, but I can't imagine it would take too much longer because Ducky Getters seems to be the favorite to win that.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And then, you know, looking ahead, if it is going to be Lotus versus Ducky Getters, Ducky Getters are a really solid team. Like, this is a team full of players that have been the underdogs of the scene, obviously having the return of Rough Beans and Hiccup, who were on the OG Ducky Getter squad that made so many people, myself included, fans of them last year. But you're going to have to wait to see that series. We will be back
And welcome back, Summoners, to the second set or the second series in our OQ coverage for today. Once again, I'm back on the mic. I'm Korak, joined once again by Quacks over here. And we actually have a little bit of upset. You want to talk about it, Quacks?
Yeah, so the Ducky Getters lost in a 2-1 series over to the Flamingos, a reverse sweep. On top of that, I don't know how much, people put stock into the best of 3 reverse sweeps. Obviously, the best of 5 reverse sweeps are the things that everyone looks at, Koryak, but still, an upset is an upset. And when we were looking at this team, we were a little confused as we don't know a lot of these players. This is going to be a team of essentially no names or very novice players coming in here and going up against some well-established, not only players, but a well-established Oregon Lotus. As Flamingos, you can see their team on your screen, rocking Maladoy in top lane, Shay in jungle, Superboy in mid, Timeless in ADC, and Bounty XD in support. And Bounty, Koryak, I think is the only player on this team that I recognize.
Well, you're doing better than I am because all of these names are definitely new to me. I had at least a little bit of advantage with knowing some of the players here for Lotus, which is our primary coverage. And I knew a bit about Ducky Getters, but I'm completely in the dark when it comes to Flamingos. But, as I've said a million different times, I am always a fan of an underdog story. And maybe we're going to see that here. Maybe Flamingos is the hidden goat that we don't know about.
Yep, we're walking into this team completely blind. We didn't have time to prep for them. We didn't have time to research them. We were told that Ducky Getters got upset. We would roll with it. And here we are, Koryak. So Lotus already seemingly done at least a little bit of their homework here. They are going to ban away the Akali to start. The Flamingos on red. I think the onus is going to be on them to take away a lot of those really good B1 champions that we have seen. Yunara, obviously one of the most prevalent, but depends on if they want to really over-index into, nerfing Chrome by banning away these 80 carries, or if they want to spread the pressure a little bit more evenly with these bans, take away things like the Ambessa, possibly, or the Pantheon, who are all good B1s, but different roles than 80 carry.
Well, and hopefully they've done their research, or hopefully they've had time to do their research into who their potential opponents might be. Because if you come in blind, like we are, if you come in blind into Lotus, I think they're going to make you pay for it. If we don't see, at the very least, a Lucian ban, this could be uphill. However, like we said before, Ducky Getters got a bit of an upset into them. So maybe they have some sort of hidden gem up and going. First couple of bans are out right above my big dumb head. We've got Akali, we've got Pantheon for Lotus, and then we've got Yunara for the other side. Yunara was one of those ones where she's new. I haven't quite figured her out, but she seems to have quite a solid performance, at least in the OQ that I've seen.
Yeah, no, Yunara is one of the best champions at 3 items at the current moment, and really is like a late game hyper scaling 80 carry that has basically every tool in the tool shed. I kind of describe Yunara as a jack of all trades, master of none, right? You've got a little bit of mobility, you've got a little bit of pressure early, mid, a lot more pressure late game, but not so much that you can be comparable to things like a Jinx, a Kog'Maw even. The numbers as well, I think, really carry her over. So Flamingos, like you said, Koryak, and like I said, they are going to take away that Yunara. Lotus, though, concerned about just kind of spreading the pressure out with their bans, not focusing on any one role. It will be the Gwen alongside that Akali and that Pantheon. Flamingo here, what are they going to take away for the last ban? It will be the Zed, likely targeted at Robbie Bob. That is a very old school pick for that player, and one that we haven't seen for a really long time. So interested about the reasoning behind that one, but it does mean that Lotus have a decent amount of B1 potential here. Probably going to see something from either Robbie Bob or Chrome, as they have been the most prevalent and prominent carries that this team has had over their OQ run so far. Obviously, we had Robbie Bob first pick that Rise in game number 2 against Syndicate, and then Chrome as well has been extremely good in every game where you've seen him on a Lotus here. That concern we had earlier, Koryak, about him gelling with Clarice, it feels like that has been very undercut and hasn't been a huge issue for the team so far.
Yeah, other than a small bit of a rough start in the early game with Leona, Clarice really came into their own, helping out Chrome for sure. First pick already coming out strong, coming out of the gate swinging. That's going to be Azir.
Yeah, so Azir, champion that, in my opinion, if you play it perfectly, is one of the hardest things to counter. Flamingos might just go for the typical matchup of Azir versus Talia, as that has been one of the most prominent, I would say, mid lane 1v1 states we have seen throughout every single series. Whenever one is played, the other might follow. Flamingos, though, going to hold their mid pick for the time being, lock in the Varus, which is what we saw in game number 1 by Syndicate, Koryak. So responses similar from both opponents by Lotus on the day.
And I kind of thinking, looking at the bans here for Flamingos and looking at some of the picks, I think what they're worried about is those champions that really capitalize on mistakes, right? You position incorrectly with the Bard, you get grabbed, and there might be a hands gap with Bard if you run into a really good Bard. And Zed's very good at capitalizing on that. You're out of position, Zed eats you for lunch. And same thing, like you said Yanara's one of the strongest champions at 3 items. So something we definitely need to watch out for. So I understand both of those bans. First pick Exir, I think plays into the strengths of Lotus. Bobby Robbie does a phenomenal job, and I think that he's going to continue doing that with Azir. And Azir is one of those, like, I feel like you almost need a degree sometimes in quantum physics when it comes to him to use him appropriately. He can be a bit wacky. And then we're going to see the Jhin again, followed into Zen. And then Varus, I think, is a safe pick. Aurora, I don't know about. I'm still learning her from my perspective, but from what she seems like, and you can correct me here, Quacks, from what she seems like is she's another champion that rewards highly skilled positioning, right? She's always looking for the because her range is kind of weird from what I can tell.
Her range is short. She's kind of like the 200 years version of Annie, I think is what a lot of people have been referring back to her as. A lot of burst damage, a lot of good early game trading, and obviously the positioning thing that you talked about, Koryak, I would say is pretty accurate. Also is really good at pairing into a bunch of junglers. So I do like that they pair up the Wukong with the Aurora. This is also a decent matchup into the Xin Zhao, but I think that's really where this game is starting to head at this point, Koryak. Obviously, you can never really ignore Chrome's Jhin, so we will have to have our gaze sort of glued to the bot lane for at least a little bit. But I mean, this is Azir and Xin Zhao versus Aurora and Wukong. This is a jungle mid combo from both sides that wants to be proactive, has the ability to scale, and can be really, really effective in team fights. So I think that should be where our eyes primarily focus on. I do imagine that the remaining picks that have yet to be grabbed up by either one of these teams are probably going to be supportive around the mid-jungle powerhouses by both of these teams.
And one thing I think that's important to note with the synergy sort of for Jhin for this team, especially when it comes to Chrome, right, is if you are paying attention to the game in general and you see a Jhin, it's kind of like Blitzcrank, right? Blitzcrank, you always have to be wary. Is like, okay, is he over the wall? Is he going to pull me? And it's the same thing with Jin's curtain call, right? That does a insane amount of damage, and even if Zen goes in, Jhin can support him from so far away, literally from downtown all the way into like wherever he needs to be, basically, and it's scary for sure.
It absolutely is. I think that Jhin has a lot of different uses at long range. Obviously, once you kind of get into that mid game, I feel the litmus test for a lot of Jhins is transitioning that early game pattern with your passive auto and that fourth shot to being more of a backline range carry that utilizes that curtain call, that utilizes that deadly flourish, and doesn't get too up close and personal to try and hit that fourth shot. Sort of can use that as a way to finish off a target or a way to finish off a fight, as we have gotten through the bans here. Lotus targeting the supports, making sure those engaged champs are off the board for the Flamingos, for Bounty in particular. Rel and Nautilus taken off, and then Flamingos putting a lot of pressure onto the champion pool of Porsche. It will be the GP and Scion taken away, and then Flamingos immediately snag up that Rumble. This is going to be an interesting perspective here from Lotus. Obviously, one of the big counters to Rumble is a Galio top lane, which could be really good when you have an aggressive jungler like the Xin Zhao, but it's just a matter of, does Porsche actually feel comfortable going against that? I feel like that would be a really good pick here, not only because of the Rumble, but because of the Aurora and the mixed damage of the Varus, but they're going to think the better of it. They're going to go a little bit more offensive in the lane and stick them on that Ambessa here for game number 1, Koryak, which I like. Good in the laning phase, and also good at catching out some of those immobile targets on Flamingos.
Well, and I think this is definitely fitting their sort of strategy. I bring up the synergy sort of as a forward motion team, and I think that we see that, right. You've got Jin who can be in the motion at any point. You've got Azir, you've got Zen, you've got Mbessa, and then into the Nico. This is very they want to move forward, and I think we need to see picks sort of counter to that. On the other side, that Rumble running into Rumble is very, very scary. You can go in on Wukong for sure. Varus is a little hard to go into with the stun, and I think Leona's a pretty good pick into all of this because, like you said, Leona's so much easier to use when you run into these sort of forward running games. Granted, she's great at picks, but her ult is just as good at turning fights around that are moving forward.
I would definitely say the big strength of Flamingos is with their engage, but also how non-committal it can be sometimes. Obviously, I think the exception to that is Shay on the Wukong having to really commit using that E followed by the Cyclone, puts you right into the middle of the action. But then you've got, pick tools, you've got go buttons like the Chains of Corruption, like the Solar Flare, these ultimates from the bot lane where you can look for a pick, you can look for an engage, but you don't have to put yourself in harm's way necessarily in order to achieve that. I think it will give a lot of interesting angles that Flamingos need to capitalize on if they want to win this game.
Once again, starting with the 5-star, I really don't expect that to change. Actually, I take it back. I did expect Flamingos to sort of play the wild card and maybe go for a 5-man stack, and actually they are indeed going for it. Leona looking for there, and Chrome got a flash forward and get a stun there on Chrome, but I think it might be all for naught. Chrome took a little bit of damage, but he just kind of walked away for the most part. I guess he did blow cleanse, so now he no longer has that lane, so that's 2 summoners down.
That's really good for Bounty, though, because look, the Hex Flash is there for the Leona, so if he wants to continue his barrage of pressure onto the AD carry of Lotus, he has the ability to do so. And speaking of pressure, Lotus are actually going to look for, similar to what they did in Game 2 against Syndicate, they're going to look for a late invade. Instead, they're going to just commit onto the Raptors. Maybe they can loop around and find Shy or Shay. God, I keep doing that. Shay on his red.
A little bit of trading back and forward here from the Nico. I'm hoping to see a better performance here
there it is.
from Clarit's on the Nico. Shay is indeed getting attacked here by Chad. Chad trying to redeem himself from the last time. Now going from, predator to prey in this new game, hoping that he can change the bullying into being bullied for the opposite side. It looks like that's going to be a case as he pushes Wukong out of his own jungle, unfortunately. Rumble trading really well into Mbessa. Mbessa very much so wants to do this skirmishing back and forward. Chad looking for a gank here in mid. And Mbessa's still really struggling here, and that's really saying something. Porsche's are very much MVP. Look at them getting pushed back in the lane, just a couple of shots away. However, Mbessa's got a couple of pots. Mbessa's really great, like I said, at this skirmishing, but Rumble,
look at
really
Chad.
Contender.
Chad just immediately went from that topside play and said, nah, I'd win again, as he's found himself onto the blue buff. There's a ward there, so he has to be really careful about taking some unnecessary harass. He will get bullied off as all of Flamingo's deploy to cover the jungle for this Wukong. We're going to go right back to where we began, but honestly, the Xin Zhao, I think, spending a lot of time being aggressive, doesn't have a ton to show for it, though, as Shay got that level 2, got that red buff, and I think went clone on W, so managed to escape without having to burn a summoner spell. At the end of the day, that cheese doesn't really reel in any mice, Koryak.
Well, and I think that the process for it, the trap that they're setting for the mice in this analogy isn't just cheese. Ooh, speaking of cheese, Leona going in on and getting Ignite there on the other side, but they're going to follow it into a damage of their own. Boneyard taking so much damage. Chad coming around on the other side as well, looking for an angle. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to get it. Timeless, and Boneyard back off just in time, but not in time for Shay, as Shay goes in for Chad. Wukong having to use his clone in order to get out of there, but at least trying to get a little bit of trading back and forward. But as I was sort of saying, is I think the cheese that they're trying to land is I think they're going for Lotus. That is, they're going for this hand stiff, right? I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these aggressive plays, and it doesn't seem to be working out so far, at least for Chad on that end.
Chad, I think, is wasting a lot of time on the Xin Zhao. Now at this point, he's down a camp essentially to Shay, and he's gonna have to reset, which means that this Wukong should be able to get a couple more camps under his belt. What this will do, though, for the Xin is possibly give him an item advantage, a tempo lead over the Wukong, as Wukong has to back himself with items, as Chrome wants to look for that fourth shot, but yeah, won't be able to find it.
Robbie Bob struggling a little bit more in mid than I expected him to. Aurora being pretty strong. Superboy having really nice trades, so it's really nice to see Flamingos hold their own in mid lane. And we're about 4 minutes into the clock, and I feel like a lot of times this is where sort of a lesser team would fall apart. And Flamingos, I think, might be this hidden underdog to watch out for. I don't think we can count them out whatsoever.
Superboy
Aurora going in on Robbie Bobby, and actually getting the first blood and the kill. Superboy showing that they can play this game too, and they're playing it quite well.
Superboy takes a flight here on the Aurora, gets the solo kill onto Robbie Bob. The Azir not able to flash out of the way, gets taken down, and the Aurora strikes first for Flamingos. Really big ups for them, especially because he manages to push in that wave, and without teleport that could be detrimental. That could give the Azir time to deny some resources from the Aurora, but he should be able to catch this entire wave.
Flash forward as Nico gets caught out there on their side. Chrome trying to go for a little bit of damage. There's the
oh my god, he's won!
Varus just so close to get it. Jin does finally get the kill, and that's going to be helpful there on Chrome as Boneyard goes in for the kill, but unfortunately that's not going to be a kill for Varus. It is going to be Feats of Warfare for Flamingos, and Flamingos actually has 3 kills.
Oh, he's executing
this early in the game. Boneyard trying to go for an execute, but not going to get it. Chad able to pick up a free kill there under the tower.
I am not sure if I would call that worth it for Chad, but he manages to get himself his first of the game. Possibly worth it because he's behind significantly, I would say, at this point in gold compared to the Wukong, because the Wukong is up about 2 camps. So getting that kill gold will allow him to get closer and closer. Yeah, they're only 300 apart now, which is good for the Xin Zhao, but him being down flash means that the playmaking potential for the Xin Zhao is not really there, as Robbie Bob forced to shuffle away. Will get out, maintains that flash, but is stuck under his turret for the time being, Koryak, which should mean dragon pressure is there for the Flamingos.
But the question is where is Wukong? Is he underneath Leona? No, he's actually heading mid, so he's not going for the objective whatsoever. And this might be sort of maybe some of the inexperience here from this team, right? Not immediately going for those objectives, not necessarily super confident. It was like, okay, we know they've backed. Let's go ahead and get this free Drake, and then maybe set up for that. He goes for the Scuttle Crab instead, maybe trying to set up the Grubbies, which if they're planning for going for Grubbies on their side, I could see why they would shoot for that. Get that Scuttle Crab, get that vision in to set it up, and maybe just ignore the Drake altogether. And one thing I want to note, especially when we're looking at the gold, is Rumble's trading really well into Porsche. Not that I think we can count Porsche out, but they seem to be really struggling. It's 45 to 59 there on that side.
It is certainly a good matchup for Molodoi. He's making the most of it as Bounty Zenith Blade finds its mark.
Going in on Chrome. Chrome getting locked down, going down about half HP. Nico in the form of one of those is, as Chrome actually gets taken down. Timeless.
Oh, he gets 6.
Followed it into an ult there on that side, taking down the Nico, and that's a double kill in bot lane. What is going on? Chrome even struggling into the Flamingos.
Really good positioning there from Timeless. He finds the kill onto Chrome. He is ready to fire those arrows the moment Bounty goes in. Ignite gets dropped on Chrome's head, and with no flash, no cleanse, he's not able to do anything about it. And then he dings level 6 of Superboy, maybe in trouble. Shreemer Shuffle works.
Robbie Bob popping Superboy on there, trying to get some much needed revenge. Chad to follow it up there on their side. Portia going for Shay on top of the Void Grubs, trying to buy themselves a little bit of time, but unfortunately, I think Zen's going for Drake instead. I guess that is the safer call, because I don't think they have Prio with Rumble up there.
Especially with Molodoi having that level 6, the equalizer can be such a game changer in those skirmishes, so Lotus are going to think better of it. They're going to trade for an objective on the bot side. And you can see all of that jungle that is up and available for Shay on blue. So if Chad wants to, especially with the prio and bot lane, he could transition that dragon into some camps being stolen. That would really put him back in control of this game, more so than he already is. I feel like he's turned this around with those 2 kills. Shea really just has that 10 CS above him, and Chad might be able to turn that around if he takes this blue.
Ooh, not if he continues to trade like that into Superboy and forcing the reset there for that side. Chrome and of course the support do a little bit of rotating here. They've been, I think, a little bit better there on the rotations on their side, trying to support Zen. But I feel like Zen is trying to force it. I feel like Chad is trying a little bit too hard to make plays happen instead of finding them naturally. And I think that could cause them a lot of issues. And especially with Chrome struggling as much as he is. He's up on CS and he's got a couple of plates. And speaking of Rumble, still continuing to bully Mbessa. Porsche going for it all, actually getting decent chunking there on Rumble, dealing a whole bunch of damage. Rumble still has his ult ready to go, and their health is tied, which can be very, very deceptive despite Mbessa getting a decent amount of healing. She does have a biscuit left, but that's really about it. Superboy trying to trade back into Robbie Bob here in mid. This mid sort of really being undecided, but Superboy, I think, holding their own, and same thing with Timeless there in bot lane. Chad looking for another angle here for bot lane.
You can see on that top side, Melodoy actually uses his ult to clear the wave. He wants to get a reset. This might be the first item for Rumble. I believe it should be, as he has that mask open. Isn't going to actually back yet, is actually going to stay for a bit. But yeah, across the board, Flamingo's keeping up with Lotus for the most part. I would say the biggest thing for them at the moment is Chad. Ooh, Superboy.
Superboy going for Bobby Rob, but Bobby Rob's able to play the turret to his advantage, getting him so close, but either one of them is just one ability away from getting taken down.
Yep. But they both retain, sorry, their flashes, which means that no one is going to do anything too crazy. But meanwhile, on the top side, you can see pings coming down from Chad to maybe collapse onto Shea. Has Flash, has Cyclone.
Shay's forced to pop his Cyclone on his side, but I don't think it's going to be able to save him. Look how little HP he has. And Mbessa, Porsche in a great position to grab it. There's double flash, but it still get taken down by Porsche. Either ways, a Rumble, unfortunately not having ult in order to save Wukong and turn that fight around, did sort of bite him in the butt, turning into a kill there by Porsche. And this is what we've seen from Porsche before, is Porsche can be behind and just sort of wait for these golden opportunities. And I think this time Chad really set up a golden opportunity, and now Porsche should be a contender in the top lane. Chrome, like we were talking about before, just struggling a little bit more. Speaking of struggling, Azir actually turning a gank into a gank of his own, but unfortunately they're only going to get Leona as there's so much damage back and forward.
Oh, he doesn't hit those!
Really struggling, falling into a curtain call, and now Chrome trying to get a kill. Boneyard actually dodging the majority of them, but not dodging that fatal last shot. Oh no, Chad going in on the Rumble. Rumble's going to get a kill out of it though, so that's good for his side. So maybe that'll tie things up and he can back. It looks like he already blew TP, and so we'll have to deal with that, but he should have a decent amount of gold when he comes back.
And then Porsche as well. Porsche as well is going to be able to shove in this wave and should be able to at least deny some creeps from the Rumbles. Lotus though coming back in the bot side. Chrome managing to pick up a kill. And just the kiting, the spacing there from Lotus allows them to get that small victory. It's victories that they need, because in about 90 seconds, those will be put to the test. Dragon going to come up. This would be Lotus' second of the game. They would really start amping up the threat of that late game win console by being halfway there. Flamingos don't really feel like they're in a position at the moment to fight this, but they've got Flash on Timeless. They've got Flash on Superboy. Those are the carries at the moment, Koryak. So if they feel comfortable going for those skirmishes, then they have to be decisive. They have to look for it. And they have to be very snappy, because like we said, the engage from the Flamingos comp is one of the best elements of it.
Well, I think this is going to turn down to who can use their advantage the best, right? Because, you know, like I said before, you know, you can get ahead all you want, but if you don't know how to use that gold, if you don't know how to use those advantages, it quickly falls apart, especially into some of the better teams. And I think Lotus very much so is some of the better teams. But I gotta say, Flamingo's sort of coming in as this underdog. They're not playing like underdogs. I'm really impressed with what they've gone with what they have going. I'm having a stroke over here. And Timeless has really been great into Chrome, followed into Boneyard. I've really liked the plays here from Leona, from Boneyard. They've been in great positioning, even though they've got caught a few times. It's really bad.
Oh, they got Clarice.
Nico getting knocked down, getting destroyed. Shade followed up with a Cyclone there on his own, and now Jin's got to worry about it. Jin's got to get taken down. There he's going to get destroyed. Azir trying to tie up the damage, and Adiz's going to fight it, but it looks like it's not going to happen. Chrome is still alive, still kicking, but not able to turn the team fight around. He does pop Curtain Call, almost knocking out the Varus, almost knocking out Timeless, but Aurora is going to intercept a lot of the shots and now go for the kill here on Chrome.
Oh, we got him.
Yes, actually getting Superboy doing a lot of work. Superboy and Timeless doing so much. Just like you said, they are the players to watch.
And they're the players that make the difference. Malodoy as well, getting a bit of an honorable mention in my mind as he drops that equalizer, reinforces his team with it, and gives them the numbers advantage necessary to win. Timeless, though, he wants to back, but look, there's a TP coming out from Robbie Bob. The bird smells of blood. Will he get it in time, though? He flashes. I don't know about that.
Really close. Timeless just staying directly out of range, but it looks like Azir's closing the gap. Robbie Bob does finally end up getting it there in the end, and now it looks like they're trying to set up a Drake. I don't blame them. Lotus is struggling more than they expected in here, and I think the Drake is a safe bet if they can get their vision and everything else. They have the numbers advantage, so now would be a good time to start it, which is exactly what Chad is doing, trying to set that up, trying to keep this game going in their favor.
Exactly, and I think that Porsche as well, having that teleport gives them the extra little bit of safety. Malodoy isn't in the area, so numbers goes over to Lotus, priority goes over to Lotus. The Dragon ultimately goes over to Lotus, following Timeless's pick in the bot lane. Rumble going to cover the mid lane, spaces really well, and actually chunks out Chad to half. That is
half.
That is an ouchie. That is an ouchie for sure.
Hopefully Flamingos turns this into a Shelly. Wukong's not in the best position as Zen actually starts Shelly there on his side. Sort of unsupported. Maybe he was just trying to get out of the jungle. Yeah, it looks like he was just trying to get out of the jungle. But I really want to see Flamingos go for these objectives, right? They've already got the Void Grubs. They may as well turn that into more tower pushing in the form of Shelly. I don't see any reason why not. Set some wards up, get that going, get your numbers advantage. You have Rumble in the top lane, so you have that priority. You don't see Aurora. Well, I guess Aurora is sort of rotating there. Coming up slowly, but Zen has to, I guess, Zen's not back. He's got a decent amount of healing, but I think by the time he gets up there, Shelly's going to be gone, and that's going to be a free objective for Flamingos.
I think Lotus are aware of the Shelly being taken. They just don't have the firepower. They don't have the footing necessary to overtake that river, so they're going to give it up. They are going to give that over to the Flamingos. The question kind of is, where do Flamingos put this, as they're onto Robbie Bob, but Malodoy overheats, which means that not a lot of extra damage or CC is possible. I wouldn't hate if they put it in bot lane, simply because we're going to be focusing on dragons heavily from here on out, Koryak. This is Lotus's win con, and Flamingos, realistically, if they could just steal one and stall out the game by 5 minutes, they set themselves up for a really close late game, because they themselves have a good amount of scaling with Varus and Rumble. I think that is certainly an option for them, and they should use that Herald to draw pressure from Lotus in 3 minutes time.
Well, and I'm trying to think of an angle of what the plan is, other than Dragon, what the plan is for Flamingos, right? Intercepting that Dragon would be super helpful, would stall out the game, would give them time to get a little bit of scaling. But I kind of think at this point, what they need to do is, even though Timeless is a good amount of kills, I think they need to play around the Rumble. They need to play around the Aurora. Those seem to be pretty strong on their side, despite, Rumble sort of deceptively so. They've only got 1 kill and they got 1 death on their side. Bounty looking for an angle here on Bounty going to down about 30-40% there on their side, running directly into Chad, and fake Chad having to force a flash there on side. Ambessa going in on Boneyard. There's Rumble having a
oh my god,
all of that damage. There's the shutdown on Rumble as more and more begin to fall. Jin pops the curtain call, but the curtain falls on his team instead, unfortunately for his side, as Aurora rotates, and now Nico struggling to get out, but it's not going to happen, and that's 3 kills for Flamingos. Flamingos doing so much here.
And Maloidoy, he roasts, he toasts, he burns away the flowers of Lotus as they fight in the equalizer, in the overheat, and he gets it done. A beautiful turnaround there from the Flamingos. Lotus fighting in a choke point. That is not where they want to take their skirmishes, and now Dragon going to be a lot more likely for Flamingos to take with that inflection of gold that they got. They also force out a teleport from Robbie Bob on the bot side, so no flank from Azir possible in the next 90 seconds. It's a huge look ahead of the Dragon, and one that they should absolutely take to turn this game around here, Koryak.
Well, and I think the thinking here for Flamingos was we didn't bring our own hot pot, but the positioning from Lotus brought one to the Rumble. So Rumble got an unofficial hot pot out on his side, having a perfect, not having a perfect run here into Robbie Bob, having to blow his ult, but Robbie Bob's able to dodge most of it, going to get taken down and picked off by both sides. And now the advantage has switched to Dragon for Lotus.
Still about a minute left, so Maloidoy will be up by the time that objective sets itself onto Summoner's Rift. You can see Flamingos are wasting no time trying to siege this bot side river. And they know Robbie Bob, because even though he won that fight, he was pretty low, so he had to go back. That means Azir will be off the map for a little bit. That gives them time to push these waves without having to worry about him. Otacon up as well means that whoever wins this, you know, if enough people die in the exchange, could be a Dragon, but also could be that Otacon. Very consequential fight coming up. You can see both teams sending one member to the top side, but Porsche critically has teleport, whereas Superboy does not. It's over halfway off of cooldown. That's still a while, so he has to back, and Flamingos have to stall their pressure until their mid laner can arrive.
Things slowing down right before the Drake pops off, and I don't really blame him. Nabessa has finally rotated, trying to help out Lotus, trying to get that Drake. They know
this is
how
not good for Flamingos,
and so do the other side. However, their positioning in Flamingos isn't the greatest. Porsche sitting in bush, waiting for something to happen. Aurora finally grouping up after a whole bunch of damage has already been dealt to Drake. Fake Nico in, continuing to do a bit of scouting there on their side. There's going to be the ult there, locking down the Nico as Leona Boneyard goes.
Well, they got him before he got it off.
Able to finish their artist. They get taken down. There's Curtain Call on that side. Boneyard trying to lock down the Jhin, but it's not going to happen. Curtain Call doing so much damage. Death's going left or right. That's a 1-for-1 trade. Both supports are down. Rest of the fight can continue to go on, but I don't think they want to fight this Drake. Look at all this damage here from Robbie Bob. Robbie Bob might go for Predator.
He's riding the Herald.
Boy is looking for an angle. Drake still in his hand. Rumble going down to Porsche, doing so
Flamingos got it.
Drake actually going down to Wukong. Robbie Bob trying to escape, trying to run away, but that's a tall order as he gets taken down by Aurora, and now Porsche is getting chased down by Varish, and it looks like only two walk away from that carnage.
Lotus lose out on the fight as Flamingos use the Herald and their AoE to get the job done. Claritz tried to look for some sort of counterpunch with the Pop Blossom, but he wasn't able to do it. The Dragons have now swung in the direction of Flamingos. They get their first of the game. They stop the soul stacking. But Flamingos didn't win the fight so much so that they could move immediately onto the Otacon. So that objective still at large. You have to think that both of these squads going to be playing around that bot side, hoping, praying, preening for a chance to get a pick and transition it into an objective.
Boneyard not taking the fake Nico there, unfortunately, there for their side. Always funny to see a minion backing, but they do back out and get out of there in time. Otacon, like you said, is up and cooking. And something I wanted to note there is, I think what won the fight there for Flamingos is they made Lotus play to their tempo, right? They were sitting in that bush, not really engaging, and then Lotus was too afraid to go in, too afraid to find an angle, and they just sort of waited for them to make a mistake, and they capitalized on the mistake. Ended up being on Claritz's side, on Nico's side, and I don't think it was necessarily because of Nico. I just think it was because of the pressure here for Flamingo, and they turned that pressure into a lot of different fights, maintained their cool, and took the Dragon there in the end, delaying out this game like you were saying they wanted to do.
Ironically enough, Lotus, their hottest commodity at the moment, their biggest carry in their comp is the bird against a team called Flamingos. Azir, Robbie Bob's Azir, 6 and 3 close to that third item. This should be what Lotus play around from here on out, as Chad on the Xin going to lose a lot, I think, of damage and carry potential as we rear our heads to the late game. And same kind of goes for Chrome. Hasn't really been able to get a bunch of resources. His curtain call has been, I think, the biggest and most important thing that he has been able to provide. So going into this next fight, really got to keep our eyes on Rabiab and really got to keep our eyes on Flamingo's ability to maybe look for a flank onto that Azir, because if the Azir goes down, then they're just going to be running around like, you know, some headless sandbirds with their heads cut off.
And something I think we got to keep watching going forward is the Leona. I'm going to kind of put her as the unsung hero here for this one, and whether that's just me being a support or not, I'm not sure. But her pressure that she's provided both in lane, both out of lane, and just sort of everywhere has been really, really great. And I think she is outshining Claritz there in this one. Not that Claritz isn't trying, but still, like, I'm just never really that big of a fan of Nico. And we've seen Nico twice here for Claritz, and I'm sure there's a lot of good plays for it. I just haven't seen the opportunities here, especially into Leona. And Leona just having such a bigger impact, in my opinion.
Certainly think that bounties engages have been instrumental for, you know, giving an angle for Superboy and Timeless in particular an entrance into the fight. As, oh no, he catches him on the back.
Portia finding an angle here on Rumble, taking Rumble down to about half HP. Rumble trying so hard to get out of it, not even really able to trade, and Bessa really getting scary here at this point, really struggling in the early game, but not so much now. Once again, Portia's just sort of biding their time and turning things around, keeping up pressure, getting farm on their side, and now Nasher is up on the map. I don't think anyone has any pressure for it, but we are going to get some wards here from Bounty, maybe trying to at least spot maybe some shenanigans going on.
It's really difficult for Meloda to actually 1v1 Porsche at this point, not only because Porsche's, you know, scaled on up, has 2 items, is a late game Ambessa, which is always a very scary thing to face down, but has Maw, has Merc Treads, has all the magic resist you could possibly want and need as a bruiser in this game of League of Legends. So naturally, Rumble isn't able to return fire, both in the literal and metaphorical sense, but they're going to have to be spitting some fire here in about 30 seconds time. Dragon about to spawn. Both teams looking to take control of that mid lane wave, but Lotus have a finger on it at the moment.
I think this Drake is going to be pretty pivotal if they decide to fight for it, either side. And I think it will really represent a turning point. Whoever grabs this, the favor is going to be so much in their odds. Positioning finally getting a little bit better here for Porsche. Porsche can now finally begin to solo Rumble, just like you were saying, because of all of the factors there before and how strong Ambessa is at this game. There he is. Bounty going in, finding another angle, taking down the Nico, but it's only a Nico so far. Bounty going to go down for it as Robbie Bob's doing so much work on his in. Superboy looking for an angle there on his side, popping back and forth, but unfortunately they're
Superboy
on their side. Superboy still continuing to do a lot of damage, still continuing to knock people down left and right. Jin getting a stun there on the Ambessa, just trying to slow things down, trying to take people out, but it's not going to happen. Flamingos now going for their second Drake, taking 3 kills there, and Lotus really struggling in this one.
Lotus just not able to find the pick onto Superboy. They had an angle onto the Aurora, but they dropped the between worlds. They get into the middle of the fight, they flash away, and they send Lotus on a wild goose chase that results in them ultimately getting the Aurora, but taking and sustaining so much damage in the process. Flamingos knock them down. A 3-kill amount of gold for them. Dragon secured, Otacon claimed, and the underdogs, Koryak, they're doing it here in the first match.
They're pushing into the heavyweight territory for sure, and really holding their own, especially after that fight. Like I said, I figured that fight was going to be really critical, and I think that is important. Now, what it's going to boil down to, I think at this point, right, is experience meets these underdogs. Is if Lotus can maintain their composure, maintain their cool, and wait for a mistake on the other side, I think that'll help out a whole bunch. But the big thing is Bounty's been capitalizing on the out of position of the other side over and over, and then Superboy's been able able to follow it up. There's been so many stars over here on Flamingo's side, and really Lotus has struggled time and time again, but hopefully consistency, hopefully the seniority plays out, but it's not looking like it. It very much is in Flamingo's favor. I know the gold isn't massively in their favor, but their positioning, they're just where they're at in the game is really, really great.
Absolutely is. They're stalling it out. They're playing these extended sequences really well. As Timeless maybe in a bit of trouble. Has flash though.
Timeless. Oh no! Chrome follows it into stun. There it is. This is the turnaround that Lotus needs, as Bounty is now getting targeted and destroyed. Shay trying to help it out, but Wukong's just not able to do too much. And that's actually a Baron that is on the table for the other side. Chad getting chunked over here by Superboy. TP in, Azir in on that side. Wards down, and there's a couple of clones there to try to scout it out. Superboy's going to be the one to watch. Superboy does have the position and the damage to steal Baron, but it's going to turn into
no!
Nico finally getting a decent ult, followed shortly behind on Jin. Jin getting a decent root and stun. Wukong trying to go for the backline, and indeed he's going to get it. So far, that's a 2 for 3. Wukong trying to get out. Chrome trying to lock him down. Porsche trying to help out, and it looks like that is going to happen. This is exactly what Lotus needs. They waited, they bided their times, and now they have an advantage.
But it's still a really good turnaround from Flamingos at the end of the day. In a 3v5 situation, they managed to fight 2. They peel Lotus off of the Baron, and they live to fight another day. The respawns will come through. No Baron will be claimed, and Flamingos can try again. It stands tall, but Timeless, I think, just maybe disrespecting Chrome a little bit there. Had the flash, but didn't use it for the deadly flourish. Thought he had the potential and the ability to dodge out on that, but gets picked, gets found. Luckily, Flamingos, the rest of them managed to salvage the situation. The question is, what comes next? Some flashes were burned on the side of Lotus. In fact, everybody on Lotus is without flash. So Flamingos certainly have the option and the ability to look for a pick. The pick might come in the bot lane, though. Pings are coming through. Maloidoy doesn't have his flash summoner.
Chad looking for an angle, and indeed he finds it, getting a decent knock up there. Rumble able to do a good chunk of damage to Mbessa, but Mbessa has plenty to deal with it, taking him out. There it is. Rumble going down. A little bitty victories here for Lotus could help out a whole bunch. They're pinging the objective. They're pinging, it looks like Baron, but I don't think they have a position to grab it. That is a small amount of gold. That is a tiny advantage, but really I think they would struggle in order to grab that. And something I want to notice too is I think Clarice is sort of this slow burn. Right, I haven't been a big fan of Nico, sort of in general, but I think as time has gone on, they're also gotten better. Their positioning has gotten better on that side, and I think it really helped out in that last fight for sure.
Can definitely see that, as we just saw a display of damage there from Robbie Bob, who is getting close to that 4th item on Azir. Flamingos want to try and set up a death trap around this Baron. Maybe bait Lotus into taking the dragon so that they can claim the opposite objective. This is a dangerous game to play, though. We saw this happen in the last series and how well Lotus played that sequence.
Ooh, Chrome getting caught out. Bounty having to blow their bullets, going in the back line, going in on Timeless. Timeless got to watch out. Nico following up with an ult of her own. Shay not really sure what to do, not having the greatest position, as Porsche is able to knock down the carry, able to knock down that. Rumble, unfortunately, not getting the best ult there on his side, and now things are really set up for the other side. No, Superboy running directly into the entire team, gonna get picked off, gonna get destroyed, flashing back and forward with their ult, trying to juke them, but Chrome is not gonna let it happen. Chrome picks up another kill, and that's 3 kills for Flamingo and maybe a Baron.
They're gonna go on to the Baron, but they're pretty low, and Baron does a lot of damage. Maloidoy, though, is picked by the deadly flourish up too far. He'll be found. Can Shay make the miracle steal happen? Oh, he's going in.
Shay going in, trying to deal a chunk of damage, but gonna get taken down there. It was a valiant effort, but it was all in vain. Something I want to notice is consistently these last couple of fights, Chrome has gotten stun after stun after stun, rooting everybody down where he needs to, and just working out so perfectly, allowing those picks to happen. They may not have a Leona, but they have a Jhin, and it's working out.
Yeah, Chrome is hitting his mark every single time. I definitely agree with you. Those picks are what open the fights up for Lotus. There's not going to really be a fight at this point. Flamingos now find themselves 8,000 gold down. A stark contrast to what had been just 5 minutes ago. Something around the lines of 3 to 4K at most. But it seems like Lotus, the experience has paid dividends. is they're not even going onto the dragon. They're making the most of this Baron buff. They are sieging up these towers and forcing Flamingos to submit.
T2's going down left and right and top and bottom. There's a TP there going for the background. Curtain call gets called in the center of the map. Massive knock up there by Nico, proving that she has so much in the ult department. Porsche coming in the back line, trying to knock people down. There it is.
Oh, Robbie Bob
mopping up even more kills. He's got his janitor uniform in, trying to get a whole bunch of these mop-ups and finding some of them. Varus having a good angle, but unfortunately not able to follow it up, not able to get the gen down, unfortunately, on his end. Shay looking for an angle. There's a couple of good executes for him to grab. If he can grab Chrome, Chrome might actually walk into his doom. Yes, indeed, he's gonna find it. There it is. No, he turns it around. What is Chrome doing? That is insanity. A little bit of BM from the emote on his side, but I don't blame him. What a smooth play.
Finds the kill onto Shay, the last one to finish up that sequence of events, and it will lead to Lotus being on sole point at this moment in time. 9,000 gold lead coasting for them. Flamingos, they had such a good early and mid game, but the late game, they dropped the ball around that Baron. Timeless got picked twice, and they were never able to really recover, but now
Chad followed into an ult of but that ult for Zen is so defensive and so helpful, as he just buys his time and then continues to chunk down the Leona getting killed there by Chrome on their side. And now Baron buff still up. They can push the T2 or T3 in top and go for the inhib on their side, and I don't think there's any other objectives they want to go for. Rumble blowing his ult, dealing a bit of damage there to Chrome, trying to isolate him. Chrome does indeed go down, does get a shutdown, but still Flamingos not in the best angle just quite yet. However, the things are trying to turn it around there on their side is Robbie Bob turns it back in their favor, and almost everybody's going to take it down, and this might already be games. They just cannot get out. Superboy having a hard time keeping up, Wukong having to back off, and now there's 3 inside the base as we get the flash there from Nico and the kill on Nico, and now there's only 1 left, and I think this game's over.
The 30-second death timer. Shay is up, but I don't think he can save the game at the moment. The teleport after the respawn is coming in from Porsche. Robbie Bob uses his ult, and Shay has to run.
Shay popping his Cyclone, still trying to find some sort of angle, but Porsche is such a scary opponent to take out. But those 2 turrets are doing so much, maybe, so they're trying to go for a couple of these inhibs, which they do indeed grab. The time is ticking down, and it looks like Lotus is running out of time more and more as it goes on to end this, and it looks like, yes, they're going to back off to see that those timers coming up. Varus is coming online, and you cannot ignore Timeless. Timeless has a lot of gold on him and has proven that he can play with the big boys, but they do back off, and now I think we're going to be in that sort of awkward stage where people are trying to figure out, okay, what do I go for? All of the inhibs are down, all of the turrets are down, and all of the objectives are down. So what do I do with my hands at this stage in the game?
I feel like at this moment, Flamingo really just have to hold on to that Nexus. It is the last thing, the only thing on their side of the map that is standing. Lotus have taken every turret, every inhibitor. So now it's just defending that Nexus with your life. Flamingos did so good in the early and mid game, but Timeless, a couple of those picks find them their way onto him. He can't get away. Lotus get that gold. They scale on up. Robbie Bob on this Azir has been so patient, has been so good at waiting for the perfect moment on this Azir, and finally it has paid off. 37 minutes in as Bounty's going in for one last hurrah.
In Chad getting stunned, but still look at all the damage back and forth. Superboy getting isolated and destroyed. Nico doing a good job of helping that Porsche just sort of 1v4 in the rest of the team while they take their time to take out Superboy. That's going to be a double kill on Porsche on their side. Nexus is destroyed, and the first point is going to go to Lotus.
It's a win for Lotus, but honestly,
Welcome back, everyone, to what is potentially match point for Lotus. Flamingos having a surprising play, but ultimately losing there in the end. Are they going to reverse sweep, or is Lotus going to go another 2-0?
That is the question on everyone's minds. But to be honest with you, Koryak, Flamingos really came out and I think surprised just about everybody who managed to watch that first game. It was surprising that they went up against Ducky Getters and managed to beat them. But I think a lot of people internally, whenever you see teams that are new, have novices, or people that are, you know, sort of newly into the scene, most people assume that those well-established organizations, when they get upset by those teams, it's more of an underperformance from the big boy instead of an overperformance from the small fry. In this case, though, we can totally see why a team like Ducky Getters might actually lose to Flamingos, as they really made Lotus sweat for it in that first game. But like you said, Koryak, they ultimately came out on top. Game number 2, though, I really want to see a better handle on that late game. It felt like those 2 picks onto Varus seriously turned the game around in Lotus's favor. But if Flamingos can get their positioning just a little bit better around that 20 to 30 minute mark, they actually could take us to game 3 and give Lotus their first loss of the open qualifier.
Well, and we still have an opportunity to get sort of some of those early victories on Lotus's side, at least when it comes to Chrome. You know, Lucian's still on the table, and I don't remember if they banned him previously or not, but that's still an early option for a lot of domination. They have been banning Yunara, if I remember correctly, and I do think that's the wise, but I don't think I've seen specifically Chrome on Yunara yet.
I think a lot of red teams have simply been banning Yunara because if it's open for blue team, they're just going to snag it up. And also, I think an added bonus to Yunara is how good she is with multiple different types of supports. Like a lot of the good ADCs are either really good with engagers or really good with enchanters, similar to her style being, like we said earlier in the broadcast, Koryak, a jack of all trades, master of none. She kind of is flexible whenever it comes to which support she's paired up with. It can be enchanters, it can be engagers, it doesn't really matter. One of the best combos with Yunara at the current moment is Lulu, which is not a super meta support at the moment. So I think not only is Yunara strong in her own right, but also unlocks the door for multiple pairings that aren't usually played and maybe aren't practiced as much by the other side. At least their counters aren't practiced as much.
Well, and if we're talking about blue side, maybe looking to grab that Yunara potential, maybe that's something that they're going to look for, because the support for Flamingos, I think, has done a really good job. And correction, it's Bounty. I don't know why I was saying Boneyard, but Bounty had a really solid performance on Leona, right? And if we get a Yunara from the ADC on Flamingos, that leaves open a whole bunch of options there to synergize with their support and the rest of the team. And so I think that would be very, very, very interesting to see. First couple of bans are going to be out, and looks like so far no deviation from what we previously had. I don't expect to see much. I do kind of hope Flamingos bans the Lucian, but maybe they have a solution for him.
Maybe they do. I feel like that is a team that was really good in the early game. At least the 2v2s from Flamingo's bot lane were able to match Chrome and Clarice, which is not really something we have seen at all from any of the teams that have faced Lotus so far. So that's a pretty high honor in and of itself. Maybe they're the ones that want to go for the Lucian instead, as it looks like Lotus are actually going really hard on the top side bans here. They're banning out the Gwen, they're banning out the Pantheon. This means that one of Yunara and Lucian is actually going to slip through the bans, as Flamingos didn't bother banning either of those champions as well. And Lucian's open. Flamingos want to go for it. If they want to steal it away from Chrome, this is their opportunity to do so, but they're going to go for the Kaisa Koryak instead. Most likely a comfort pick for their AD carry, and there's Lotus with the Lucian.
That really doesn't surprise me. I did like your strategy. I did like your thinking for, you know, Flamingos grabbing Lucian. I think Timeless could have done it, but either they didn't do their research or they're confident in their ability, whether it's correct or not, to take down Chrome's Lucian. We'll get to see it.
Yep, Chrome's Lucian. It's here. The legends are true. Flamingos, though, going for the Kai'Sa probably paints a more aggressive, engage heavy comp, following up. Things like the Jarvan are really popular. Things like the Rel are really popular whenever you have a Kai'Sa in your game. Lotus, though, have a little bit more flexibility, particularly with Lucian, who is really good with multiple pairings. Obviously, the Nami is the big one. The Braum and the Melio are also there. And they're going to go for the former. Braum Lucian going to populate the bot lane for Lotus in game number 2. Also just really good against Kai'Sa. A lot of people lately have been playing the AP Kai'Sa, so being able to block that Void Seeker with all of those magic damage ratios is really valuable to have. Flamingos, though, going to continue with their barrage of engage as they pair the Vi up with the Kai'Sa, and I would imagine here probably either pick up their support or pick up their mid laner.
Well, and I really like the Braum pick here for Lotus, not just because of the synergy it works on, but I also just want to see their support on Braum. You know, we haven't seen that yet from them. I think we saw Leona and Nico twice there on that side, but I really want to see Clarice on Braum. And yes, indeed, there's the Mundo pick. I don't like first picking Mundo, right? Because
yeah, I don't like this blind either.
It's very easy for someone to go, oh, okay, there's Mundo. What is Mundo's advantage? Health bar. How do I beat that health bar? And I think Olaf is a good answer to it. I would have suggested Volibear, but I just like the bear. But I think Olaf's a pretty solid choice into that, and is still scary barbarian.
Yeah, Olaf is really good and also has, you know, a bit of an unsung flex potential. I think that Olaf jungle has recently risen a little bit in priority. We've seen it in a couple of pockets of pro play so far. So obviously it's more likely that it will be going top lane, but I don't want to completely I don't want to completely throw out the idea of it going into the jungle, as now we're going to be going into the second phase of bans. I would imagine that Lotus are going to be just taking away a lot of these engage supports, right? Rel likely going to be taken off the board against an engage comp. And then other engage supports that I'm blanking on for some reason. Alistar could be another one, right? There are a plethora that, yep, Nautilus, that's a good shout out as well. If they want to look for more picks, they could do something like a Blitzcrank if they really wanted to go crazy. But I would imagine that the big thing for Flamingos is needing an engage support, and Lotus probably going to just take away as many of those as possible. Rakan actually a good ban in my opinion.
I think Rakan with Kai'Sa can be really scary, and it looks like Flamingos is more worried about the mid for Lotus banning out that Syndra. I haven't seen him play Syndra yet, but I can't imagine it's not in his wheelhouse to play whatsoever, unless I'm forgetting literally a game a minute ago or not. Robbie Bob, I'm sure has a quite a large plethora of plays. They did ban out his Rise though, which I like. I thought his Rise plays were pretty solid there on the other side. And I'll be very, very surprised if Lotus doesn't ban out the Rel, because I feel like they really struggled there with Leona, and Rel in a lot of ways is Leona but with an escape. So that'll give Bounty on the other side a lot of opportunities, a lot of wiggle room, and I do enjoy Kai'Sa with Rel, although I don't get to see it too often from my end.
It's a really popular bot lane duo. The biggest curiosity that I have in the current moment for this draft, though, Koryak, is it's very uncommon to see the jungle mid picked on 4 and 5. So I wonder if there's some kind of spicy combination that Lotus have, kind of brewed together for this game. Maybe they want to do something like a Nocturne Orianna, something that really has that synergy, hammers home that aspect of a mid jungle comp. Or just some kind of ace up their sleeve. Maybe an unorthodox pick is going to be thrown in here for Chad, as Flamingos going to probably just keep banning away these mid laners from Robbie Bob. I mean, we saw Robbie Bob be a huge problem for them in game number 1. So I think denying as many of those champions away as possible, particularly those late game hyper carries that he is known for, does have a lot of value. I think Orianna could be another really good ban for them so far, even if there are no immediate good ball deliverers on the side of Lotus. It's just a nice thing to have in your back pocket. So we'll see. Victor going to be the ban.
And I do like the Aurora pick from the previous game, because not only is it a really good solid pick, and not only did Superboy play it really, really well, but they've denied it for the next game for their opponents. So I think that's a good grab. So that's now off the table. And Victor, I think being off the table is a really solid choice. He still is very, very strong, very, very scary, and hard to deal with. And it's going to be a Morgana, I think, in mid lane.
Jungle.
So Morgana jungle?
Against
I did see Morg mid literally yesterday.
By them? By Lotus?
No, not by Lotus. I think it was by Milk, if I remember correctly, too. It was Smolder.
I would bet you money that this is going to be a Morgana jungle. This is a really good pick into Vi because you black shield all of her CC. It is extremely valuable to have. I like it a lot. We'll see, though. I mean, I don't hate Morgana mid, but it would be a blind pick, and I'm not sure I fully support that. This is going to be the Mel picked up here for the Flamingos, which honestly feels like an even worse matchup for Morgana at this point, just because you can get your Q reflected by mid at that point. So I would bet money that this is going to be Chad jungle going Morg.
No, I hope you're right. I haven't seen Morgana jungle in some time
a while.
on my end. So I would be happy to see it here. And we're going to get a Jax for Flamingos. Hopefully they fare a little bit better this time around. But the most important pick, I think, is coming up right now, because this is going to determine who is where that Morgana is going, and where Olaf and everyone's going, because a couple of those choices are gigantic question marks.
And again, I want to kind of circle back to the possibility of this being an Olaf jungle. So we'll see what the last pickup is. And again, into Jax, into Mundo, into Kai'Sa, or Mel, Mundo, Kai'Sa. Very poke heavy. Obviously has that engage, but you've got the Void Seekers, you've got Mel, and you've got the Cleavers. Those are things that could be really damn difficult to deal with, especially if you're trying to hold a point. So if Lotus want to, pick up more champions like Braum, those that can negate the projectiles, I think that could have a lot of value going forward, or at the very least peel the projectiles off of that back line. That could be very valuable, as it will be the Viego. So it is going to be a Morgana mid. I was wrong. Against a Mel, I think I hate this.
So I expressed in my previous game, in yesterday's game, that I was not a big fan of Morgana mid, and indeed they got destroyed by a Smolder very, very early on, and right up until they didn't, and then they dominated the game. So maybe that's what we're going for, and it looks like what Lotus is going for is a decent amount of denial, right? So you've got Morgana countering a lot of what Vi has, and of course other people as well, with that black shield being so powerful. And then you've got Braum, who not only has the aerial denial, but has that shield, which is so powerful and pretty difficult to deal with from the other side. I'm trying. Wait, no,
it's it's actually not. It's Morgana jungle.
Oh, okay.
It's Viego mid. Okay. I like this. This is cool. Viego, for those of you who do not know, Viego lane got buffed, not this most recent patch, but the patch I believe before that, so he is more viable in that role. Wow, I have not seen it yet, so I am very unfamiliar with how this champion functions in lane, but this makes for a super exciting game here, Koryak, and I think adds an extra layer of dimensionality to Lotus's draft, as we haven't really seen them cook too hard. This is certainly the most out of their draft that they have had in their open qualifier run so far, but I don't think it changes the win con. I think Chrome, with all the black shields, with all of the unbreakables, with all of the peel that he has, this Lucian should be looked at as the carry regardless.
And I'm trying to square all the pegs here, because the Viego mid really threw that off. I did not have that on my bingo card or anywhere near my bingo card. It was 16 miles away from my bingo card, and I just didn't expect it there on my end. I'm excited to see how it boils down. It's definitely weird, and I'm trying to figure out what the plan for each side is.
Koryak, we completely ignored it, but it's Mundo support.
Okay, so okay, so I saw that, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to sound like an idiot, and I was gonna wait for you to say something, so I sounded less like an idiot. But yes, indeed, it's gonna be a Mundo support. Okay,
and here I thought
those are picks.
This is a really weird draft, my friend, but I just want to get into game. This looks extremely exciting. This looks like it is going to be a total, it's going to be just a cluster, this game. Like, I cannot imagine this game being normal, for lack of a better term.
I'm not going to make a single prediction because so far I have been wrong everywhere on this tree. And so I'm the same way. I'm going to wait till we get into game. Speaking of, here we go, going into game. I don't know what to expect. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted on my end. And I don't know how to answer this. I was hoping we'd have like a minute break so I could go scream at a wall or something and figure out how this is going to work, but I'm not getting it. We're going into it and we're going to be doing it live. So you'll get to see me have a stroke, all 50 of you.
This is a very weirdly drafted game, but certainly entertaining. You can ask yourself a lot of questions while looking at these champions and the roles that they occupy. But am I bored is definitely not going to be one of them.
No. Yeah. not even close. I'm confused. I'm plenty of things, but board is not one of them. Clarit's taken a pretty sizable chunk of damage, and I think that might spell how the lane phase is going to go, because one of the things that Braum wants to do into a melee comp is he constantly wants to throw his Q, but Mundo is going to return it and then heal up over and over. So I think Mundo wins that trade. It's going to boil down to, I think, the positioning for Timeless and Bounty, specifically around each other in lane, if they're maintaining that circle, because like if Lucian can get in there and get a couple of shots there on Mundo, it can turn the fight around really, really quickly.
Kind of interested to see how this Viego mid lane affects the rest of the map. There are not a lot of meta mids at the moment that are melee. You almost always see someone ranged occupy that role, which means that more than likely Superboy is going to push him Robbie Bob for these first few levels before Viego can really start to get that kill threat increased once he gets a couple of those items. And this means that Chad won't have a lot of priority early on in this match. So if Shay wants to look for something aggressive on this Vi, try and disrupt this Morgana's full clear, he'll more than likely have the priority and support from his team to do so. As you can already see, Bounty and Timeless have shoved in a stacked wave under Chrome and Clarit's tower. So Shay, I wouldn't be surprised if he just, after these Raptors, cuts and decides to look for something onto the Morgana, knowing that Morg started topside because there is that ward on the blue buff.
Well, and something I wanted to say here is this is Arcane Comment Mundo, right? Another thing I didn't have anywhere close to my bingo card for this one, but it really seems to be working out quite well. Constant poking back and forth. Robbie Bob finally able to tie things up a little bit in mid, really struggling into the middle, at least initially, but doing a lot better. Braum finally able to get a couple of shots, but it's nowhere near the amount of damage that Bounty has been doing there on the bot lane. Like every single time that cleaver's up, they're just tossing it. They're being an absolute pest. Honestly, not quite as bad as it was previously, but it reminds me of old school Fiddlestick support with the Crow, where you're just constantly throwing it and almost always getting a free shot, and that's kind of what's happening here. Look at Clarice's HP already. Another Q does land on Timeless, almost locking down. Timeless does actually get locked down in this. Chrome still showing that despite the fact that they're behind, Lucian really is one of his comfort picks, and Braum pairing so well. Lucian able to get that proc sooner rather than later, but Mundo able to turn it blow for blow. Still continuing to throw hook after hook. Braum having to blow another shield on that side, and there's just lots of shenanigans on every side.
But both junglers have finished up their clears. Chad not going to look for anything in the bot lane, as Timeless and Bounty really want to just leverage their poke to find an angle to actually go in, as both flashes are there for them, but both flashes are there for the Lotus bot lane, so ultimately nothing is going to come of it. And they will resume as normal. Chad doesn't go for the back, instead goes right over to his respawned Raptors. So this will give possibly a timer advantage over to Vi, but a gold disadvantage as well, because Chad should be recalling, getting those faded ashes, and being more of a threat on the map once those skirmishes start to rear their ugly head, which they haven't yet, Koryak.
Well, and I'm taking a look at the CS, sort of while you were talking, and Kai'Sa's doing really, really well. I would have expected Lucian to struggle more there, but Mundo's having such a weird effect on the game, just constantly poking, sort of out-bramming Braum when it comes to that early sort of like melee support, and it's doing a whole bunch of work. Superboy still continuing to trade into Robbie Boy, popping his return, his reverse Uno card there into Robbie Bob, but Robbie Bob not able to really happen, or Robbie Bob not really baiting for it, not really running into it. Superboy still continuing to trade so close. That can go either way there on their side. It looks like Lucian and Braum have rotated top. Timeless there to follow, Mundo there to follow, and Chad there to follow on that side. Robbie Bob having a bunch more HP than his counterpart on that side, but he's got to worry about Vi because that assault and battery is getting close to coming online. Vi's level 5.
A few more camps should do it. Vi hits level 6. That is the real break point that you have to be looking at as Shay. It's going to go to his top side, just clear up those camps. Chad will be on the bot side, so maybe has the opportunity to look for a dragon if they can get eyes on where Flamingo's jungler is. Morgana deceptively good at objective control with that Tormented Soil as Superboy.
Ooh. Okay. Really threading a needle here in mid on both sides. I expected Viego to have such a hard Robbie Bob getting such a clean kill there on Mel. Mel getting absolutely juked and outplayed on that one. That was definitely a hands diff on Viego. Really didn't expect Viego to fare well in mid, but you know, like you said, he seems to be doing quite well for himself.
We said he was going to get pushed in. We said he was going to be on the receiving end of bullying until he had that kill threat, and the moment he gets the Heartbreaker, speaking of which,
oh no. Chrome does have to blow flash in order to get out of that shenanigans, but that means Morgana is now freed up in order to grab that. I thought they were going to struggle. Lotus said I thought they were going to struggle in order to grab this Drake because it looks like Olaf's been having a little bit of trouble into Jax, and they don't have Chrome in bottom, so they have a little bit less prio. But Flamingos are just kind of letting them have it, and that means the Drake can go to that, and Morgana's really great at taking the Void Grubs, so I think we see an angle where they take that and they take the Grubs. They are taking their sweet time in order to grab this Drake. They do finally grab it with Jax not having enough time to respond there on their end. Chrome going in, able to get the passive there on Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa getting exhausted. Timeless trying to get out of there, trying everything they can in order to survive. Chrome still continuing to hammer out damage. Bounty
Shay's on the backside,
back and forward.
Shay's on the backside. He's looking to get level 6. He wants level 6 before he's able to go in. I think he'll get it off this camp. And now he's going to turn his attention onto the top lane. Can he do it? Can he make it happen?
Assault and battery is online, but Morgana, Chad has rotated just in time.
Oh no!
Ult popped there on that side, and it looks like before the fight even starts, the Mundo goes down, and that's gonna be another kill. And most importantly, it feats a warfare. Morgana being a monster, and of course, the support going down in an unfortunate spot. Mundo not doing as well in that team fight, maybe getting caught out in a bad spot.
And that fiasco on the top side goes the way of Lotus. They get the feats of warfare, so that first notch for the feats of strength going to be completed by them. Dragon was also secured by Chad ahead of these grubs, so it should be an easy angle for the Lotus top side, or the members on the top side, to reset, recuperate, and look to take those grubs down, knowing that they can item diff their opponents.
The Grubbies are up, and no one really having a position there for them just quite yet. We need to get some wards here in the Tribush by Mundo, and vice versa there for Braum to get that going. I think those Grubs are going to be so powerful. I think those Grubs are going to be really, really important. And especially you want to deny them, I think, from Lotus at this point. Unfortunately, Superboy has to back. That's a lot of their damage having to rotate, and that means the priority is probably going to go to Morgana. Morgana starting the Void Grubs in order to see Shay taking them out. So far, Morgana is by themselves, but Viego can rotate at any moment, and Morgana can steal these grubs, and maybe that's what they're going to go for. One grub did go down to Flamingos, but there is still an opportunity for Morgana to grab the lion's share of this as Bounty tries to trade back and forward, and now Shay going for their farm instead. Maybe worried about the Morgana, definitely worried about the rotation here for Robbie Bob. You cannot underestimate Robbie Bob. Mundo walking directly into Robbie Bob, going down to about half HP. Kai'Sa trying to follow it up, also dodging that Braum Q on that side, not picking up into the passive. Here is Superboy to try to turn the tide for their side. Braum not sure where to go. It looks like we're going to get Chrome going in on their side, popping his ult, trying to go for Superboy. This is really going back and forward. So much shenanigans on that side. Superboy just can't get out. He's stuck on their side. Looks like Olaf did rotate. Chrome able to get a kill there on his side, and this game has already turned into 0-5 for Lotus with 2 grubs under their belt. Flamingos starting to fall apart to the weird.
Yup, Lotus draft unorthodox, and Flamingos can do nothing but crumble. They try to siege against the Morgana, but Lotus play it slow, they play it steady, and they get their members slowly but surely permeating through that top side. And they get, like you said, the lion's share of grubs. They will get credit for that objective. On top of that dragon, that just means one more neutral, and they will claim the feats of strength. That'll be really, really big to have, especially for these sort of double threat comps that Lotus has drafted. You've got Robbie Bob, you've got Chrome. These are your carries. If you can give them even the most granular of advantages, they are going to be able to get you to the next round in these OQs.
Well, and I think one thing I really enjoy, Porsche has got to watch out for Assault and Battery on Shay. Shay hasn't blown it just quite yet. They have it ready to go, and now it looks like they're going to fully commit here till the dive. There's going to be the TP coming in on the tower. Olaf just trying to stay alive, but not going to happen there in time. Braum did rotate, probably with a spellbook, trying to lock down the Jax under the
Robbie
tower.
Bob.
It's not going to happen. Robbie Bob rotating here. This could be exactly what you want. Get a kill, get that reset, get the stun, which he is indeed working on. Robbie Bob having so much damage, but now he's going for Predator Prey on this side, going down by half HP, having a blow. His flash on this side and just sort of turning it into a nothing burger. It was a valiant effort, and one thing I did want to say is what I like to see here on Robbie Bob is we get to see so many champion picks from him because of the Viego mid. He kills someone.
Oh my god!
Now he is Mel going in for the Mel. Unfortunately, forcing the ult there for Braum, turning into a bit of a nothing burger, but at the very least, they saved the Braum and saved a bit of the tower.
Still, though, 1-for-1 trade by Lotus, but they want to try and turn it into something more. Heartbreaker is there.
And one more shot in order to get stunned. It looks like they're not going to be able to find it. There is Vi. Assault and Battery is no longer on the table, but they do not want this fight. Robbie Bob is such a threat. Getting the bounty there on Bounty, taking him out, turning into Mundo, now hitting his head directly into the tower, trying to fight Shay. And Robbie Bob is really the MVP, I think, of this one. I wanted to say earlier as well, is almost everybody on Flamingo at this point, or sorry, on Lotus at this point, has had their moment in the sun.
Certainly have, and this is Robbie Bob's moment to break hearts and break spirits, as it looks like Superboy is not long for this world. No flash, and Koryak, the kill goes over to Chad ahead of the dragon.
That's got to be devastating. That means the Drake is gone. You're 1-8 so far. There's almost a 4K difference. You're not in position to grab this. There's a lot of weird going on. You're probably having a stroke from a couple of picks, both your own and the other side. Absolute shenanigans on every single side. But so far, the weird chaos is really in the favor of Lotus, and maybe this is where Lotus lives. Lotus lives in the chaos, and they're definitely embracing it here in this game.
They certainly are, but the flowers are in bloom. They are looking quite beautiful here in the second game. Lotus as an organization, Koryak, one that has been absent for the better part of a year since their defeat in that close 5-game series to Polestar around 12 months ago. They have not shown their faces since then. Most recent thing that we saw them in was this past ACL split, where they have 4/5 of the remaining members. Oh boy.
Fight sort of getting set up. Vi looking for some sort of angle, but diving Braum and Chrome is a tall order, but they do indeed get it, and not deciding to go for the Lucian there at the end, but picking up a kill there on Braum. Despite his HP, he went down like there was nothing. Superboy getting pushed out of lane. Viego just so oppressive, going for Superboy, taking him out, and that's a rampage for Robbie Bob.
4-0-1, 13.5 minutes as double flash committed by Flamingos to try and get the angle onto Chrome. Shay has his ultimate, so just wants to get a lick.
Chad going in, locking down the Jax. Jax
Giga Chad. Giga Chad.
This, for sure. Yeah, this Morgana jungle is working out significantly better than I expected. I haven't seen more jungle in a long time, and I'm happy to see it here. And Chad really doing well on it for sure.
He certainly is, diving the tower without giving a crap. Another kill over to Lotus, and the walls are starting to close here for the Flamingos as every lane is struggling. Timeless
getting a little bit too close there. One shot left on him to either get taken down. He does pop his barrier, trying to keep himself alive. Bounty going to go down for it. Chrome trying to find an angle in order to get this Kaisa, but Kaisa does manage to walk away. Mundo starting out strong in the early game, but not so much now. Look, he is 0-5. Poor guy.
It's been a really rough game for Bounty here on the Mundo support. Mundo They say he goes where he pleases, but he hasn't been able to go to a lot of places. Bro has been stuck just wherever at this point, wherever his team needs him. But at this rate, feels like there isn't going to be a lot to do for the Flamingos. The walls are slowly but surely starting to cave in. Lotus find more and more advantages with every passing minute. Now Flamingo's gonna overload the top side in hopes of getting this tower, but two members of Lotus are there to follow. A TP is coming from Robbie Bob. Are they gonna try and dive this?
Robbie Bob going in under the tower, taking so much damage, waiting for the TP. So many TPs going in. Robbie Bob going down to about half HP. Getting this kill would be super great, but Kaisa going down before anything really happens as they absolutely collapse here on Flamingos. Flamingos falling apart, getting taken down, and now Shelly is up for grabs. That's 3 kills, 3 snacks, and a Shelly on that side. And something I wanted to mention here is Viego. Robbie Bob is in such a great position. This is just a buffet of champions for him to grab, and that he doesn't know who to choose between. And he's absolutely dominating the competition. He's 5-0 at 15 minutes. There's a 8K, I'm bad at math, 8K difference in gold at 15 minutes.
And the former EGC Challengers mid laner, the former UST CLOL champion, one of the best, most storied, historic mid laners in the tier 3 ecosystem. So many people have doubted his ability to come back from multiple years of disappointments, but he is doing just that, Koryak. He is showing up in this game on the weird. Like you said, this Viego cannot be stopped. He is breaking the hearts of the Flamingos.
Superboy going in the back line, trying to get some much-needed kills, actually getting a shutdown there on Chad. Chad finally going down, but Chrome here to follow it up, try to knock down the Shay. Jax just trying to get out, but maybe actually getting a kill there in the end. That's a 3 for 2 so far, but they don't want to run it to Chrome. Chrome is still a monster. You have to deal with him. The Viego is down, but Chrome is waiting for his opportunity to come online as well. And Olaf sitting at 3-0, Morgana 4-1, and of course, Robbie Bob sitting at 6-1, showing his pedigree as a player, showing that he is not spent, that he is not washed up. He's ready for more and looking for more opportunities.
He's not washed. He is damn darn clean, this man. He goes down for the first time on that top side, but it's only going to buy a few seconds for Flamingos to set up around this bot side river. Maybe they're going to use them to get onto Chrome, but this Lucian has Flash as barrier, has so much safety at this point. You're never catching the AD carry of Lotus ahead of this dragon. And Flamingos probably wisest to give this one up when you are, like you said, Koryak, 9,000 gold behind. The walls, like we said, they're closing. They're closing very fast. We aren't even close to the Baron spawning. It's still 8 minutes basically until that comes up.
Well, and Lotus has plenty of times here to play with this. And once again, I know it's very tempting for the other side, for Flamingos to go, okay, they're taking that Drake early and you stop them. But at this point, it's like, no, you need to wait for Lotus to make a mistake. You need to wait for Lotus to really, really mess up and then try to capitalize on that. And in some ways, they have done that, right? When we got that engagement over on the top of Shelly, Jax did go in and try to mop up and get what little kills they could on their end. And they got a shutdown on Chad, so it's not the worst thing. They are still downhill, but those tiny little victories can turn into a lot more. But there's so much action going all over the place. Shelly crashing in on that side. It looks like Braum finally getting isolated, lockdown, following an ult of his own, but he wants to be in the front line. He wants to take this, but maybe he doesn't want to take this much damage.
Ooh, good stun.
Going in. So this is exactly what you want. Looks like the fight's finally favoring Flamingo. Flamingo going for a bit here, but Chrome is still not down. Chrome nuking the Kaisa, leaving all of them by themselves. Now Chrome trying to get a little bit of healing there, and Jax actually going down to the Morgana Shay, trying to lock down Chrome, but it's not going to happen. That's going to be a double kill on Lucian, and that's a 4 for 1 for the side of Lotus. Lotus doing so much work here, and Chrome trying not to get outshone by his other side, and neither is Chad. Chad, Robbie Bob, Chrome, MVPs of this ground, and in the background they have Braum, they have Portia, and they have the Braum in the background just doing so much work.
And Lotus are coming up big in this game. 3v4. Be damned. They win out on the fight. Chrome with the fancy footwork. Chad with the damage. We have talked about Chad throughout this day, throughout his career in 2025. We have said it has been mired with disappointments, with shortcomings, and with him narrowly missing out on the chance to prove himself in a tier 2 setting. But this feels like a different version of the player. He has been so ubiquitous here on the Morgana. This unorthodox champion really feels like it is speaking to Lotus's strengths, and they are looking so strong. 5-21 in kills, over 10,000 gold lead. Dragon going to be up in a little less than 3 minutes. This game feels like it's only a matter of time unless Flamingos can get a Hail Mary play.
And taking a look at the gold, there's a 12K difference. I know we keep bringing up the gold, but still, that is so devastating. I do like what Flamingos is doing. They're taking what opportunities they can when they can, but it's extremely upkill. If they're going to start something, they need to get autocon sooner rather than later, and I don't think they have the time. Look how quickly it is melting. It's already down to half HP. However, Flamingos does have a good opportunity. Robbie Bob has had a lot of armor shredded. Superboy looking for an angle, looking for a stun. Mundo able to absorb a whole bunch of the damage, exactly what he needs to. There it is. Ult there from Lucian there on that side. Shay falling apart. Shay getting taken down. Robbie Boy, in order to knock out the Superboy and taking them down left and right. Everybody's going down. Autocon's going down. 4-man are going down, leaving Kaisa the only one remaining, and Robbie Bob on the chase, on the hunt, trying to track them down, but Kaisa's just a little bit too fast. But I think they could turn this into a win. That's about 20 seconds on the clock. Maybe not.
I don't know if they're going to be able to win the game, but they should be able to break open the base in several areas on the map. Inhibitor is exposed here on the bot lane. That should be enough for Lotus. You can see that they're also turning their attention to mid. So double Inhibitor, I think, is the ideal situation here for Lotus, but you have to keep in mind they're 15,000 gold ahead. If they want to try and just end the game here, their health bars are healthy. They don't have their ultimates, but at this point it might not matter. They are going to think better of it. They are going to live to fight another day. It's 90 seconds around that until this Dragon and Flamingos, they just want to get this day over with. This has been the opposite of game number 1. Game number 1, we thought it would be a close series, but Lotus locked in, and they showed everyone that they can go so much higher than what people initially had them at. Their ceiling has been raised, and Lotus as an organization are back and ready to go.
Well, and I think this is a perfect example of not only chaos as a win condition, but the subversion of expectations.
Oh my God.
However, massive stopwatch used on that side. Double kill for Lucian, but it doesn't really matter. They had the numbers advantage, but it quickly fell apart because Lotus definitely has the gold advantage. 2 only left on their side. Shay not even backing. It looks like this game is over. No one can really stop him. Jax definitely can't stop him, and Vi is not even going to try. And this is a 2-0 victory for Lotus as they move further on into the OQ. Congratulations, but a valiant effort by Flamingos for sure.
Flamingos looked solid in game 1, but that might have just been lightning in a bottle. Still, we've seen the ceiling of that team, and we know they can go higher, but the ceiling of this Lotus squad, Koryak, has yet to be reached, has yet to be seen by us on the broadcast. How much higher can they go? That is the question I pose to you all, as look at this beautiful gold graph, Koryak.
Devastating for sure. 35.5K to 51.4K. That is insane. A night and day difference between game 1 and game 2. And now, most importantly, Lotus is continuing their 2-0 record. So far, every single game they have played, they have been 2-0. There's been no mix-up, and they're continuing their flawless victory. So we might get to see Lotus break through the open qualifiers and go further and further on into the NACL. However, Flamingos is not out of this just quite yet. Losers bracket is up for them, and we can see a return from a lot of these players that have been knocked out of this first initial winners bracket.
The next matchup they will be going up against will be on day 3, so you'll have to wait 6 days. I know, a while for their next match, but it is going to be against, I believe, the Zen Shi Gaming, who 2-0'd Royals. And that'll be the next match to watch on day 3 of the open qualifiers. But that is for another day. That is for another week. And until then, we are going to go and we are going to close on out. So from myself, from Koryak, from Caddy on production, and from everybody who stuck with us through Twitch screwing us over, through game times taking a little bit long between series, through all of the shenanigans on the broadcast today, thank you so much. Have an amazing night, and we will see you back all here on Saturday the 30th. Take care.